The keys to Mercer hardware lay in a chipped saucer between June's three children. Nobody reached for them. Mark studied the financial statements as if the keys might bite. Elise pressed one finger to a water ring on the counter. Grant stared past them at the wall of pegboard where his father's old framing hammer had hung for 20 years. June waited. Outside, a pickup slowed beside the darkened storefront, the driver apparently confused by the close sign on a Sunday afternoon. Walter had opened for emergencies on Sundays. Frozen pipes, broken sump pumps, a toilet flange discovered halfway through a bathroom floor. Death had not yet taught the town new hours. Finally, Mark cleared his throat. "Mom, you can't seriously expect one of us to take this on. I didn't say I expected anything." June looked at each of them. "I asked who wanted it." Elise gave a soft, pained laugh. "Wanted it how?" "The same way you wanted the cabin. That is not remotely the same." "No," June said. "The cabin has a lake." Grant pushed the saucer away with 2 fingers. Not hard. Just far enough that the keys stopped being in front of him. That small movement hurt more than any of their answers. June picked up the keys. She was smiling when she did it, which made Mark narrow his eyes. Her children knew the smile. It usually meant their mother had noticed something and had not yet decided whether to be polite about it. 6 weeks earlier, half the county had filled First Methodist to say goodbye to Walter Mercer. Men June had not seen since the first Bush administration came through the receiving line, with red faces and enormous hands. They told her Walter had once driven 40 miles through an ice storm to deliver a furnace igniter. They told her he had carried them for 2 months when work was slow. They told her he could identify any screw thread by touch. "He was Mercer Hardware," one man said, squeezing June's hand between both of his. June had smiled then too. The store had not ordered its own inventory at midnight. It had not argued down an insurance premium, caught payroll errors, swept mouse droppings out of the grass seed display, or called customers who were 90 days behind, and found a way to ask for money without stripping the skin off their dignity. But a funeral was no place to correct a slogan. Now, on the first Sunday in March, her children stood in the store Walter had supposedly been all by himself. The building smelled of fertilizer, machine oil, and the cinnamon gum Walter kept in the register drawer. June had not thrown the gum away. She had also not chewed any. It sat beside a roll of pennies and a note in Walter's handwriting that said, "Call Pete, Hinges," with no last name and no clue which Pete. She slipped the keys into the pocket of her cardigan. Mark closed the business folder. At 46, he had perfected the slow, controlled movement of a man who spent his days delivering bad news in conference rooms. His hospital badge was still clipped to his belt, though it was Sunday, and he had told June twice he was not working. "Let's back up," he said. "I think we're mixing together 2 separate conversations. We're having one conversation. We're talking about Dad's personal effects and estate planning. The store is a distressed business." Grant made a sound that might have been a laugh. Mark glanced at him. "Is there something you want to add?" "Nope." "Distressed business just sounds nicer than dumpster with a cash register." Elise folded her arms. "That's ugly. It loses $5,000 a month in winter, Elise." "48.70, June said. Grant looked at her. "February," she added. January was worse. That shut them up for a moment. They had arrived expecting coffee and perhaps sandwiches. Elise had brought a lemon loaf in a clear plastic container, the grocery store price sticker still clinging to the bottom. Mark brought a legal pad. Grant brought nothing, but he had shown up 10 minutes early and salted the slick patch by the loading door without being asked. June had arranged 4 stools around the main counter, the same counter where Walter had taught all 3 children to count change, though only Grant had ever worked there longer than a summer. On the glass surface, she placed 4 folders. The first held statements for the investment account Walter had built slowly through automatic deposits and an almost religious refusal to touch it. The second contained the deed, tax bills, and maintenance records for the cabin on Lake Wabash. The third contained the title to Walter's blue Ford, a list of the tools in his detached workshop, and an estimate from an auctioneer. The fourth contained Mercer Hardware. Walter's will had left everything to June. The attorney had repeated that sentence 3 times, perhaps because the children were in the room, and perhaps because he had known Walter. There was no legal contest and no mysterious final instruction. June could sell every bolt and fishing lure, take a cruise around the world, and leave the remainder to a parakeet. She did not own a parakeet. She did own more than she wanted, and at 68 she had no intention of spending 10 years guarding objects until her children could fight over them beside her coffin. So, she had invited them to choose what part of their father's legacy they were willing to take responsibility for now. Mark chose the investment account, though he called it a transfer strategy. He had 2 mortgages, a salary that impressed people, and the pinched look of someone who never trusted a salary to last. "I can manage it without disrupting anything," he said, "and it's liquid if you ever need help." June did not ask why her money needed to pass through him before it could help her. Elise chose the cabin. She touched its folder before June had finished explaining the septic inspection. "We can't let that leave the family," she said. The cabin had 2 bedrooms, a leaning dock, and a family of squirrels living somewhere in the north wall. Elise had spent 4 nights there in the previous 3 years. Still, she spoke warmly about Thanksgiving by the lake, although no one had ever celebrated Thanksgiving there because the baseboard heaters could not warm the place above 58 degrees. Grant chose the truck and the workshop tools. He did not make a speech. He opened the folder, read the inventory, and asked, "The old Delta saw included?" "Everything in the workshop." "What about the chisels in the basement?" "Those too." He nodded once. His thumb rested against the paper beside the words, "hand tools, assorted." June saw the dirty half-moons under his nails and remembered Walter shouting at him across aisle 7 when Grant was 22. Not the words, only Grant's face afterward, flat and careful, as if he had closed a door inside himself. He had quit the store that Friday and built a respectable contracting business out of the back of a van. June had imagined that the offer of Mercer Hardware might mean something to him, despite all that. She had been wrong. Elise reopened the cabin folder. "Obviously, these aren't equal values." "No," June said. "So how are you planning to balance them?" "I'm not." Mark took off his glasses. "Mom, you chose what you wanted. I told you to choose. I didn't tell you to appraise your grief. That's not what she means," he said. "It's a little what I mean," Elise admitted. Grant leaned against the key-cutting machine. "You grabbed the cabin before she got to the roof estimate." "I did not grab anything. You put both hands on the folder, because it matters to me. Then congratulations." "You got the squirrels." Elise shot him a look. "At least I chose something connected to us as a family. You chose lakefront property. And you chose approximately $40,000 in tools. 32 at auction," June said. "Maybe 28 if they sell quickly." Grant tipped his head toward her. "See, Mom brought numbers to the knife fight." Against her will, June laughed. It came out rusty. All 4 of them noticed. For one brief second, the store felt as it had before Walter became sick, before every conversation required a lowered voice, before June learned how many kinds of silence could fit inside a marriage. Then Mark tapped the 4th folder. "The question is, what happens with this?" June had moved the store keys into the saucer. "That's why we're here." She walked them through the facts without softening them. The line of credit. The banknote Walter had renewed 19 months earlier. The aging roof over the lumber shed. The inventory that looked valuable until one noticed how much of it had not moved since people still bought television antennas. The building itself had value, but not as much as Elise liked to imply. Not once the debt, deferred repairs, auction costs, and taxes took their bites. If June closed immediately and accepted a poor liquidation price, she might walk away with enough to live carefully. If she waited too long and sales continued to slide, she could lose much of that cushion. Mark wrote figures on his legal pad. Elise asked whether the upstairs apartment could be marketed separately. Grant wandered to aisle 3 and came back carrying a brass faucet stem coated in dust. "Dad ordered about 200 of these," he said. 144, June replied. "For what?" "He believed people would come back to brass." "From where?" "Space?" Mark did not laugh. He turned the legal pad around so June could see a column of numbers. "If you close by June, sell the building, and put the net proceeds into conservative funds, you could draw a reasonable amount every month, especially after the house sells." June looked at his neat handwriting. Mark had always made beautiful 4s. "And live where?" she asked. "We've discussed that." "No?" "You've discussed it." Elise's voice softened. "The condominiums near me are lovely. They're beige. You can paint. The outside is beige. Most buildings are some version of beige, Mom. Mercer Hardware is red brick. Mercer Hardware has a raccoon problem." One raccoon, June said. Formerly. Grant set the faucet stem on the counter. You still thinking about the apartment upstairs? Three heads turned toward her. She had mentioned it only to Grant, and only because he had helped Walter replace the water heater there 2 years earlier. It needs work, June said. Mark's expression changed first. Absolutely not. Oh, good. I was waiting for the vote. The stairs alone are a problem. I climbed stairs. Now. There it was. One small word, neatly placed. June reached for the cinnamon gum in the register drawer, changed her mind, and shut it again. Elise lowered her voice, as if June's age might be startled by loud noises. Nobody is trying to take away your independence. Then stop describing where I'm allowed to live. We're trying to keep you safe. Walter was safe in the hospital. The silence afterward was so complete that June heard the compressor kick on in the employee refrigerator. She regretted the sentence, but not enough to retrieve it. Mark looked down at his legal pad. Elise picked at the price sticker on the lemon loaf. Grant examined the ceiling. Walter had gone into the hospital for tests on a Tuesday and died 12 days later. In those 12 days, June had driven home twice to shower, signed 7 forms, and watched machines perform every function except the one she wanted, which was to return her husband to his own body. Safe had become a word other people used when they had run out of better things to promise. Mark put his glasses back on. What are you proposing? June drew the 4th folder toward herself. Nothing yet. You have to have some idea. I have several. I'm going to look at the books without making decisions around a hospital bed. I'm going to talk to the bank. I'm going to find out what the apartment needs. And then I'll decide. Elise stared at the pocket holding the keys. You're not planning to run the store. June looked around. A strip of afternoon sun fell through the front windows, exposing dust on the seed racks. Walter's handwritten signs hung from the ceiling. Plumbing, electrical, fasteners. Behind Grant, one letter had fallen from housewares, leaving House WRS. On Monday morning, Darlene would arrive at 8 and complain about her knee. At 8:15, Mr. Avery would come in for 2 furnace filters and stay 40 minutes. The supplier would call about the overdue balance. Someone would ask for Walter, and June would have to say it again. She had no grand answer, only the weight of the keys against her hip, and an unexpected dislike of everyone assuming she would put them down. I'm planning, she said, to open tomorrow. Grant watched her for a long moment. Then he picked up the lemon loaf. You got a knife back here? Elise frowned. That's for Mom. She's not going to eat a whole loaf. It freezes. So does drywall compound. Doesn't make it lunch. June found a utility knife beneath the counter. Mark objected on hygiene grounds. Elise discovered napkins in her purse. Grant cut 4 uneven slices on the closed business folder until June slapped his wrist and gave him a scrap of cardboard. They ate standing among the things none of them had chosen. When her children finally left, June locked the front door behind them and turned the sign from closed to open just to see how it looked. Then she turned it back. In the office, Walter's wall calendar was still open to January. Doctor appointments crowded the squares in June's handwriting. She tore off January, then February, and looked at March. With a black marker, she drew a line beneath the date 1 year away. She did not write promise or deadline. She wrote one word: decide. The marker bled through the calendar page and left a black shadow on the month beneath it. June capped it, set Walter's reading glasses on top of the desk blotter, and went upstairs to see where she intended to live. The apartment had been empty for 7 years, unless boxes counted. Walter had filled the living room with discontinued porch lights, damaged bags of grass seed, and 3 cartons labeled Christmas that contained no Christmas decorations June recognized. A plastic reindeer head stared up from one box, so perhaps Walter had recognized them. The kitchen faucet coughed brown water before running clear. The refrigerator had been unplugged with its door closed and smelled like something had crawled inside to reconsider its life. June opened a window. Cold air came in, carrying the clean metallic smell of late winter and the less clean smell of the diner's grease vent 2 buildings over. From the living room, she could see Main Street, the courthouse clock, and the roof of First Methodist. She could also see the entire Mercer Hardware parking lot. It was not beige. She went home, slept poorly in the oversized bed she had shared with Walter for 47 years, and was back at the store before 7:30. Darlene arrived at 8:06 wearing a purple coat and carrying gas station coffee. I thought maybe we'd be closed, she said. The sign says we open at 8. I know what the sign says. Darlene glanced toward Walter's office. I just didn't know if, with everything, we open at 8. Darlene removed her coat carefully. Her right knee made a faint clicking sound when she bent to place her purse beneath the counter. At 62, she had worked at Mercer Hardware for 11 years and mistrusted any change that required moving inventory lower than her waist or higher than her shoulders. Mark came by Saturday, she said. June looked up from the register. Said he was checking the thermostat. Did the thermostat appear sick? Darlene missed the joke or chose not to encourage it. He asked where Walter kept the building insurance. In the office. That's what I told him. June waited. I didn't give it to him. Good. I showed him the drawer. June opened the register with more force than necessary. Walter's cinnamon gum jumped beside the pennies. At 8:15, Harold Avery came through the door in a tan jacket polished shiny at the elbows. Morning, he called. Walter in back? Darlene's face tightened. June felt the answer rise into her throat like something with claws. Walter died, Harold? Mr. Avery stopped beside a wheelbarrow display. His mouth opened, then closed. Oh, he said. Oh, June, you were at the funeral, I know. He removed his cap and looked down at it. Course I know. I don't know why I said that. It's all right. No, it isn't. Fool thing to say. He stood there holding his cap, devastated by a mistake June had already made twice herself. The first time, she had heard the garage door and thought Walter was home. The second, she had turned in bed to tell him the furnace was making that noise again. What do you need? She asked. Filters. 16 by 25, 4-inch. 2? His eyes lifted. That's right. June brought them from the storeroom. Mr. Avery paid, then stayed at the counter talking about a section of gutter that had pulled loose. Walter would have told him how to fix it. June did the same, drawing the angle of the bracket on the back of his receipt. By the time he left, 2 other customers had come in. One bought batteries. The other spent 20 minutes comparing snow shovels and bought none. At 9:40, the supplier called. Mercer Hardware, June said. A man introduced himself as Warren Pike from Central States Wholesale, though June had spoken to him at least twice a month for 9 years. Yes, Warren. There was a pause. June, still. His voice changed. It became slower and warmer, as if grief had affected her hearing. I'm so sorry about Walt. I wanted to get over to the service, but I was in Louisville. You sent flowers. My wife handled those. They were nice. He cleared his throat. I hate that we have business to discuss. Then you're about to have a difficult career. Darlene looked over. Warren gave a reluctant chuckle. You got me there. It's the past due balance. Our system is going to place the account on hold Friday. The system didn't renew the order after I canceled it. What order? 14 cases of electric pipe heating cable. Walter placed it in December. I canceled before shipment. It came anyway. I'll look into that. The invoice is in front of me. How much of the cable sold? That isn't the point. Some? 2 units. Another pause. June could picture Warren leaning back from his monitor. Walter had liked Warren because they both used stories to avoid saying numbers out loud. June had never had the time. I can pay $9,000 on Thursday, she said. You take back the unopened cable and issue credit. I'll pay another $6 on the 15th. That still leaves $11,382.19. I'd have to get approval, then get it. They may require cash on delivery going forward. If they do, we'll order less. You'll lose your volume discount. We're losing more buying things we don't sell. The words landed differently once she heard them outside her head. Warren promised to call by afternoon. At 10:30, a man in paint-spattered work pants entered carrying a plastic grocery bag. He looked to be in his early 30s, with a red scrape across one knuckle and the wary expression of someone entering a room where everyone else knew the rules. Plumbing? He asked. Aisles 6 and 7, Darlene said. He thanked her and disappeared between the shelves. 10 minutes passed, then 15. June found him kneeling in front of the shut-off valves with 6 packages spread around his boots. Can I help? Probably not. That bad? He looked embarrassed. I don't know what the thing is called. Most things in plumbing have several names, all disagreeable. That earned half a smile. He opened the grocery bag and removed a corroded valve with a short piece of copper pipe attached. This was under my kitchen sink. Not anymore. It started spraying. I shut off the water to the whole apartment. June took the piece from him. The compression nut had cracked. One end of the pipe had been crushed by pliers. You rent? Yeah. Landlord said I could fix it or wait until Wednesday. Did he say he'd reimburse you? He said, keep the receipt. June had opinions about this arrangement, none useful to the man kneeling in aisle 6. She found the correct valve, ferrule, and nut, then added a small tubing cutter to the pile. I already bought one of those big wrench things at Home Depot. This isn't a wrench, I knew that, of course. At the counter, she drew the assembly on a paper bag. She showed him where to cut, how far to clean the copper, and how to hold the valve steady while tightening the nut. How tight? Firm, then another quarter turn. Don't try to prove anything. He looked at the drawing. And this'll work if the pipe isn't split farther down. What if it is? You come back and we think of something else. He paid $27 and left carrying the pieces in the paper bag, as carefully as takeout soup. Darlene waited until the door closed. Walter would have sold him the braided supply line, too. He didn't need one, could have used a spare. June looked at her. Darlene lifted both palms. Just saying. At noon, June ate half of Elise's lemon loaf over the sink in the office. It was dry enough to require coffee after every bite. Her phone buzzed 3 times. Mark had emailed a spreadsheet titled, Options for Mom. Elise had sent photographs of 2 condominiums, one with gray siding and one with siding that could only be described as ambitious beige. Grant sent no message. Warren called at 1:10. Central States would take back the unopened heating cable with a 15% restocking fee. June argued it down to 10 by reminding him the shipment had been canceled. The account would remain open, but the next 3 orders had to be paid within 15 days. It was not a victory. It was enough air to remain upright. The man with the shutoff valve returned at 2. Water darkened both knees of his work pants. June braced herself. It worked, he said. Then why are you wet? I didn't dry the pipe before I started. He bought a second valve for the bathroom and another paper bag for June to draw on. At 3:30, a woman returned a cordless drill Walter had sold her in December. The battery would not charge. June exchanged it, though the receipt was missing because Walter had written the purchase in a spiral notebook he kept under the counter for reasons known only to God. At 4, Darlene asked if she could leave early because her knee was swelling. At 4:15, June discovered the register tape had stopped feeding sometime before lunch. At 5:30, she locked the door and counted the day's sales twice, $426.11. She carried the receipt stack into the office and entered each transaction in the computer. Walter's chair squeaked when she shifted her weight. She had ordered that chair after he complained about the old one for 6 years. At the time, he had told everyone Grant bought it for him. June opened the inventory program. The screen filled with categories and numbers. Some she trusted, many she did not. According to the program, the store owned -6 toilet seats and enough galvanized elbows to construct a small mechanical forest. She printed a list of everything that had not sold in 18 months. The printer ran out of paper on page 37. At 6:20, someone knocked on the front glass. Grant stood outside with a tape measure clipped to his belt. June let him in. I had a job finish early, he said. Thought I'd look at the apartment. You don't have to. I know. He headed for the stairs before she could turn on the sales floor lights. Upstairs, he walked through the rooms without commenting on the smell. He opened cabinets, tested outlets, pressed 2 fingers against the wall beneath the front window, and crouched beside the kitchen pipes. June followed with a notepad. Well, she asked. Well, the refrigerator's committed a felony. I'm replacing it. The wiring's older than me. Most useful things are. He ignored that. Bathroom floor is soft near the tub. Could be the wax ring, could be more. You need smoke detectors, handrails, probably a new water heater in a year or 2. The water heater is 2 years old. Grant looked at her. Dad told you that? You installed it. I installed one downstairs. This one was already here. June wrote water heater and underlined it once. Grant went to the living room window. In the fading light, the courthouse clock glowed pale green behind him. If you do it right, he said, 15 to 18,000. I don't need to do it right. I need to do it safe and clean. That is doing it right. I'm not putting in granite countertops. I wasn't planning a waterfall island, Mom. She wrote 12,000 on the pad. Writing a smaller number doesn't make materials cheaper. It gives them something to aim for. Grant rubbed his mouth, hiding a smile. Then he nudged one of Walter's Christmas boxes with his boot. "You want this stuff? I don't know what it is." He opened the carton with the reindeer head. For the first time all day, Grant laughed without restraint. He lifted the head by one antler and held it at eye level. "This was on the roof when I was 19. The whole reindeer? Until Dad backed the delivery truck into it." June remembered Walter blaming wind. Grant set the broken decoration aside and began moving boxes away from the wall. He did not offer to renovate the apartment. June did not ask. They worked until a path appeared from the stairs to the windows. After he left, June returned to the office and found Mark's spreadsheet still open on her phone. She deleted the email without reading past the first line. On the back of the day's sales report, she wrote 4 notes: filters remembered, 1 valve explained, dead inventory returned, apartment not impossible. Then she added the figure from the register beneath them: $426.11. The number was terrible. The notes were not. By Wednesday, June had added 3 more pages to the stack. She wrote down questions customers asked, what they bought, and what they left without buying. The sales reports told her that someone had purchased a faucet cartridge. They did not tell her that he had arrived with the old cartridge wrapped in a washcloth, tried to explain it for 7 minutes, and nearly left because the replacement was stored behind a display of bathroom fans. Walter had trusted his memory. June trusted paper. She carried a roll of blue painter's tape through the aisles, marking anything the inventory program claimed had not sold in 18 months. Darlene followed at a distance. "What's the tape for?" Things were not ordering again. Darlene peeled a strip off a display of brass cabinet latches. "Mr. Hensley buys those?" "When?" "He bought some last year." 4 years ago. "The program says we sold 2. Then the program's wrong. Did Mr. Hensley pay cash?" "I don't remember. Did he buy all 38? Darlene frowned at the latches. "He might come back. If he does, he can buy 2. The tape went back on. By noon, blue marks dotted the store like small bruises. Walter's hunting boot warmers. 3 sizes of chimney caps that fit no chimney June had ever seen. Decorative mail slots shaped like eagles. 21 cans of almond-colored appliance paint. Darlene stood beside the paint. "You can't stop carrying a color because it isn't popular right now. Almond hasn't been popular since people smoked in hospitals. It comes back. Brass came back. Almond apologized and left." A woman examining drawer pulls laughed. Darlene did not. She returned to the counter and sat on the stool Walter had forbidden employees to use when customers were present. June pretended not to notice. At 1, Elise arrived in a cream wool coat unsuited to the weather. She carried a tape measure in one gloved hand and the Lake Wabash folder beneath her arm. "Why does it look like somebody attacked the store with painter's tape?" "I did." "Is that a clearance system?" "It's a thinking system." Elise tugged at a strip attached to a porch light. "Don't mark down the fixtures before I photograph the building." June stopped writing. "Photograph it for what?" "For comparison purposes. I have a commercial broker coming Friday." "No, you don't. He's not listing it. He's giving us an opinion." "Us?" "Mom, I do this for a living. You said you were considering your options." "I am. How can you consider them if you don't know the market value?" "I know the market value. You know the county assessment. That's not the same thing." June held out her hand. "Give me the cabin folder." Elise tightened her arm around it. "Why?" "You appear confused about which property you chose." Color rose from the collar of her coat. "That's unfair." "It's extremely exact. I'm trying to help you." "Then ask me what help I want." "I did. For the past 6 weeks I've asked. You always say you're fine. I am fine. You're living alone in a house with 4 exterior doors and trying to revive a store that has been declining for years. I'm not living in the store yet." Elise stared at her. Yet. The word sounded more dangerous in Elise's mouth than it had in June's head. June lowered her voice. "Cancel Friday. Just meet him." "No. What are you afraid he'll tell you?" "I'm afraid my daughter will mistake access for permission." The drawer pull customer had become very interested in brushed nickel. Elise looked toward the register, where Darlene was pretending to study an invoice. Then she stepped closer. "I'm the only person in this family who knows how property works. You are very good at selling things. That is not all I do." "No. Sometimes you measure them first." Elise dropped the tape measure into her handbag. "Fine. Fine means you canceled him. I heard you. That is not the same sentence. I will cancel him. She turned toward the door. The cabin keys are in my purse, June said. Elise stopped. June took out the ring Walter had assembled for the lake place. Front door, shed, boat padlock, dock box. Each key had a plastic label in June's handwriting. Elise cupped the ring in her palm, and some of the fight went out of her face. I thought there was a key shaped like a fish, she said. That was the old front door key. Walter changed the lock after it jammed. He kept it on the hook by the stove. He threw it in the lake after he changed the lock. Elise looked up. On purpose? He missed the first time and had to throw it twice. A smile pulled at Elise's mouth before she resisted it. June pointed to the folder. The septic inspection is behind the tax bill. Read it before you turn on the water. I know. And there's a soft board near the end of the dock. I know. You didn't know the front door lock changed? Elise tucked the keys into her bag. You don't have to make me feel incompetent just because I disagree with you. The accusation found its mark cleanly. June thought of all the times Walter had corrected Grant before he could finish a sentence. She folded her hands on the counter. You're right, she said. Elise seemed almost disappointed. About that, June added, not Friday. I'll cancel him. She left without buying anything. Darlene waited until the door closed. She gets that from Walter. Which part? The leaving. June removed blue tape from 6 cans of appliance paint, then put it back. At 4, Darlene's knee gave way beside the register. She caught the counter before she fell, but the sound she made was sharp and frightened. June came around the display and took her elbow. Don't fuss. I'm not fussing. You're holding me like a criminal. I've never held a criminal. You held Walter. Frequently. Darlene let June help her onto the stool. Her face had gone gray around the mouth. Doctor says I need the replacement, she muttered. When? Whenever I get tired of feeling like somebody put a steak knife in there. That sounds like now. Now costs money. June knew Darlene's insurance deductible. She also knew the 2 weeks of paid leave Mercer Hardware officially offered would not cover a knee replacement and recovery. How many days can you work without making it worse? Darlene looked offended. I work 5. That wasn't my question. After a long silence, she said, 3, maybe 4 if I'm mostly sitting. They both looked around the store. Retail had very few jobs for a person who was mostly sitting. I'll change the schedule, June said. With who? I'll hire someone part-time. You got money to hire someone? No. I also don't have money to find you on the floor. Darlene rubbed the heel of her hand above her kneecap. Lena Ortiz might do it. June knew the name. From Willow Run? Not anymore. What happened? Hand injury. Workers' compensation mess. She can't do full maintenance, but she knows hardware better than most men who come in here. That is a low shelf. Darlene gave a brief snort. She's bossy. You don't like her? I didn't say that. I said she's bossy. Would she work for me? Darlene looked June up and down. Depends which one of you gets to be bossy first. Lena came in the next morning, wearing a navy work jacket with the Willow Run Apartments patch carefully removed. The outline remained in cleaner fabric over her left breast. She was 47, compact and square-shouldered, with dark hair going silver at the temples. A pale scar crossed the back of her right hand and disappeared beneath her cuff. She did not bring a resume. I'm not applying for cashier, she said. June gestured toward the office chair. Good morning to you too. I can run a register. I'm not standing at one smiling all day. Nobody here smiles all day. Walter expected it. Walter's position is no longer available. Lena studied her, then sat. Darlene had told her about the reduced hours before telling June she had called. June decided to resent that later. What can you do? June asked. Electrical, plumbing, drywall, locks, basic appliance repair. Used to turn over 28 units at Willow Run. I ordered supplies and trained new maintenance hires. What can't you do? Heavy demo, overhead work for long periods. Anything that needs strong grip in my right hand. Lena flexed her fingers once. I can explain how. I can diagnose most things. I can bench repair if I brace the work. How many hours? 20 to start. I can offer 16, then offer 16. $11.50 an hour, 13. Darlene doesn't make 13. Darlene should ask for a raise. From the counter, Darlene called. I heard that. Good, Lena called back. June tried not to like her. 12, she said. 3 shifts. We reassess after a month. $12.50. 12 and employee pricing after 30 days. Lena glanced toward aisle 6. Your employee price on plumbing is worse than Lowe's retail. Only on PVC fittings and braided lines. $12.25. Fine. June held out her hand. Lena shook it with her left. Her first shift began that afternoon because Darlene's knee had swollen inside her pant leg. Within 20 minutes, Lena sold a customer a toilet flapper, talked another out of buying the wrong dimmer switch, and rearranged the screwdrivers at the counter without asking. June moved them back. Lena waited until June turned away, then moved them again. At 3, a man brought in a table lamp with a cord he had wrapped in electrical tape. Walter used to fix things, he said. No, he didn't, June replied. The man blinked. He fixed this. He sent it to a retired electrician named Paul. Paul moved to Arizona. Lena took the lamp. She turned it over, checked the socket, and bent the cord near the plug without using her injured hand. Cord's cracked in 2 places, she said. Socket's loose. Parts are maybe $9. The man brightened. When can I pick it up? We don't repair lamps. You just said. I said what's wrong with it. June watched him prepare to leave. She saw the taped cord, the old lamp, and the familiar embarrassment of having asked for a service that no longer existed. What would labor be? She asked Lena. Lena looked at her. If we repaired lamps? If 20? Too much, the man said. Then buy a new lamp, Lena replied. He hugged the broken one closer. My wife likes this one. 20, June said. Pick it up tomorrow. After he left, Lena set the lamp on the counter. You have a liability policy for repairs? I have a call to make. Tools, some, bench. June looked toward the back room, where unopened heating cable had occupied one wall until the morning. Not yet. Lena followed her gaze. Darlene, seated on her stool with an ice pack balanced against her knee, said, Walter kept the good vice in the workshop. Grant chose the workshop, June said. The sentence quieted all 3 women. The tools were no longer simply Walter's. June had offered, Grant had chosen, and now choice had begun removing things before she knew she needed them. Lena touched the scar on her hand. I have a vice, she said, small one. June looked at the lamp, then at the empty space left by the returned cable. Bring it tomorrow. Lena arrived carrying the vice in a 5-gallon bucket. The vice was older than either of them, painted a green that had surrendered to rust around the jaws. 2 wrenches, a soldering iron, and a divided plastic box of electrical parts surrounded it. You planning to repair a lamp or perform surgery? June asked. Depends what's inside the lamp. Lena chose the least unstable table in the back room and tested it by leaning her hip against one corner. It rocked. We're not bolting anything to this. It held the coffee maker for 18 years. Coffee doesn't need precision. You haven't had Darlene's. Darlene, opening the register at the front, called. I heard that. They found a discarded piece of plywood near the lumber shed and laid it across 2 sawhorses. The arrangement looked temporary because it was temporary. June preferred not to name how many permanent things in Mercer Hardware had begun that way. Lena clamped the lamp base with her left hand and used her right only to steady it. When a screw resisted, she changed the angle instead of forcing her grip. June watched without appearing to watch. You should charge a deposit, Lena said. It's $20, parts plus half the labor. Otherwise, people decide they don't want it and you own a lamp. It belongs to his wife. That has never stopped anybody from abandoning something. June wrote a repair ticket by hand. Customer name, phone number, item, estimated parts, estimated labor. At the bottom she added, not responsible for items, left over 30 days. Lena read it. Make it 60. Why? Because we're not monsters. June crossed out 30 and wrote 60. The man returned before noon. He plugged the lamp into the test outlet, clicked it on, and stood looking at the yellow pool of light on the counter. My wife died in November, he said. June's eyes moved to the ticket. He had written Ellis Crawford in a loose, slanting hand. I'm sorry, she said. She read under this thing every night. Murder mysteries. The more bodies, the better. He turned the switch off, then on again. Shades ugly as sin? It is, Lena agreed. Mr. Crawford laughed. He paid the $29, added a $5 bill to the counter, and refused it when June tried to return the extra. After he left, June put the 5 in an envelope marked Repair Bench. You need separate accounting? Lena asked. I need to know if this makes money. One lamp does not make a business. One lamp made $5. After parts, labor, and the fact that I brought the tools, $4. Lena's mouth twitched. By Friday, the back room contained 2 lamps, a hedge trimmer with a damaged cord, a window screen needing new mesh, and a toaster. June refused on the grounds that people put food inside it. She called their insurance agent and learned they could perform limited repairs if they documented the work, tested electrical items, and did not touch gas appliances. The additional premium was unpleasant but not fatal. Everything costs money before it makes money, June said. Some things skip the second part, Lena replied. The hedge trimmer belonged in that category. Its owner approved $35, then became outraged when Lena discovered the switch also needed replacement. You said 35. I said based on what I could see. You took it apart. That's generally how repair works. He looked to June for rescue. June could have swallowed the difference. Walter often had. He would curse the customer after he left, then call the lost money goodwill. The new estimate is 58, June said, or we reassemble it and charge 10 for diagnosis. Walter never charged to look at something. Walter is not looking at it. The man's expression changed. June had learned there were people who heard death as sorrow, and people who heard it as an opportunity to win an argument. Put it back together, he said. Lena waited until the door shut behind him. You're going to get that a lot. I know. You said it like you didn't. I said it like I didn't want him to know. They made a printed intake form that afternoon. The store did not transform. Most days, the repair bench earned less than the candy rack. Darlene disliked the growing line of broken objects and referred to them as Lena's junkyard. Lena referred to the stool behind the register as Darlene's throne. June spent much of her time preventing 2 women old enough to know better from weaponizing the label maker. Still, people came in. Some brought things that could not be fixed. Lena was good at telling them why. She could place a burned switch or stripped gear in a customer's hand and make failure feel like information rather than stupidity. Others arrived with photographs on their phones, a leaking trap, a door that would not latch, a ceiling fan with 3 black wires and 1 red. June noticed that when Lena explained a repair, the customer usually bought every part needed to do it. On the first Saturday in April, the register showed $1,209 in sales. It was not enough, but it was nearly 3 times that first Monday. June wrote the figure on the back of the sales report and added, repairs, $147. Parts sold with advice, approximately $310. She circled approximately. Walter had considered estimates close relatives of lies. Grant came through the back door while she was still looking at the numbers. He carried one end of a scarred maple workbench. A man June recognized from Grant's crew carried the other. Where do you want it? Grant asked. June stood. What is that? A workbench. I can see that. Then we're making progress. Lena cleared the plywood from the sawhorses. June touched the bench top. It was heavy, marked with saw cuts, drill holes, and black rings from paint cans. This is from your father's workshop. No, it was mine. I don't remember it, because he made me keep it against the back wall. Grant's employee looked toward the door with the alertness of a man who had accidentally walked into family weather. Grant nodded to him. Thanks, Rob. I've got it. Rob escaped. The bench had a row of shallow drawers. Grant pulled out the bottom one and showed June a faded black G written underneath. He said my joints were sloppy. Were they? I was 17. That is not an answer. Yes, they were sloppy. Lena crouched beside one leg, still standing. Maple forgives a lot. Grant and Lena positioned the bench beneath the task lights. Their first disagreement involved 6 inches of wall space. Their second involved whether the vise should be mounted on the right or left. Left, Lena said. Most people are right-handed. I'm using it. Grant looked at her injured hand. He did not ask. Left it is. June watched him drill the bolt holes. Walter had taught him to brace a drill with his shoulder. Grant no longer did it that way. When he finished, June followed him out to the loading dock. You don't have to donate things. I'm not donating it. I'm storing it here, so I should charge rent. That bench is worth more than the space. It was against a wall for 22 years. Grant wiped sawdust from his palms. You keep records on everything now? I always kept records. You know what I mean. She did. Thank you. He looked through the open loading door. Lena was mounting a task light above the bench. Darlene sat at the counter, pretending not to supervise. You're really doing repairs, a small number. You need to be careful. Mark already handles concern for the family. This isn't concern. People bring in junk, you touch it, then their house burns down. We have insurance. He know you're doing this? Who? Mark. June waited until Grant heard himself. He rubbed the back of his neck. Right. I'm not required to file activities with your brother. He'll find out. Is that a threat or a weather report? With Mark, same thing. Grant glanced toward the front of the store. I cleared most of the workshop today. The sentence caught June unprepared. He had every right. She had given him the tools, the truck, the contents. She had even told him where the basement chisels were. Most? Big machines, lumber rack, clamp cabinet. I left the finishing supplies until I can sort what's still good. Fine. You want to look before I take the rest? No. He studied her face. You sure? They're yours. I asked if you wanted to look, and I answered. Grant picked up his drill case. You do that thing where you make the question sound rude so you don't have to answer it. What thing? That. He left before she could decide whether to be angry. June stayed until the store closed, then drove to the house. The detached workshop stood behind the garage, its double doors open. Grant's blue Ford, the truck he had chosen, was backed up to them. The bed held the Delta saw beneath a tarp. Inside, empty rectangles showed on the walls where cabinets had hung. Pale islands marked the concrete where machines had stood. The room looked larger and cheaper without Walter's tools. June walked to the back wall. A fringe of wood shavings remained beneath the place where Grant's bench had sat. She remembered it now, not as a bench, but as the thing Walter complained about whenever he needed to reach the clamps behind it. On the main work table lay a stack of sandpaper, 3 cloudy jars of screws, and a coffee can filled with broken pencils. Grant had taken the valuable things. He had left Walter's habit of saving what no one needed. June opened the clamp cabinet out of reflex, forgetting Grant had removed it. Her hand met air. She stood there longer than the mistake required. You came. Grant's voice made her turn. He was in the doorway carrying 2 paper cups. He offered one without approaching. I forgot my coffee, he said. You brought 2. I forget in advance. June accepted the cup. It was black with 1 sugar, the way she drank it at the store. At home, Walter had always poured cream into hers before she could stop him. Grant leaned against the doorframe. You taking everything tonight? She asked. No. Truck's loaded heavy. The saw should be strapped at 4 points. It is. I can only see 2. The others are under the tarp. She nodded. They drank coffee without speaking. The workshop ticked as the old heater cooled, although no one had turned it on. Grant nudged a flattened cardboard box with his boot. Dad offer you the store before he got sick? June looked at him. It was ours. That's not what I asked. He didn't need to offer me something I already owned. Grant's face closed by a degree. June heard the wrongness in her answer, but could not locate why it was wrong. Did he say something to you? She asked. No. The answer came too quickly. Grant. He crushed the paper rim of his cup between his fingers. I asked a question. You answered. Then he walked to the truck and lowered the tailgate to check straps he had already checked. June looked around the stripped workshop. The objects had been divided exactly as she intended. No fight, no lawyers, no greedy hands reaching for what belonged to someone else. Still, the room felt like an argument she had entered halfway through. June left the workshop lights on when she went inside. The house was dark except for the clock above the stove. Walter had bought it from Mercer Hardware after a customer returned it because the second hand clicked too loudly. In 41 years, June had stopped hearing it. Now it filled the kitchen. She carried her coffee to the sink, poured out what remained, and opened the cabinet where Walter's mug still sat upside down beside hers. His read one. Hers read the other. Elise had given them the set on an anniversary so long ago that the red lettering had faded to pink. June took down hers, wrapped it in a dish towel, and placed it in an empty grocery box. Then she wrapped his. She did not know whether that meant she was keeping it or unable to throw it away. The following afternoon, Grant presented her with 2 estimates for the upstairs apartment. The first said basic in capital letters and came to $9,860. The second said full and came to $16,430. June put a line through the second without reading it. You should read what you're rejecting, Grant said. I've been rejecting expensive things for most of my life. Practice has made me efficient. Basic gets you the bathroom floor, electrical panel, handrails, smoke detectors, plumbing repairs, paint, and cheap vinyl in the kitchen. How cheap? The pattern has stones on it that have never existed in nature. I can live with imaginary stones. It doesn't include appliances. I know how to buy a refrigerator. You bought the one at the house in 1998, and it still works. It makes ice shaped like gravel. I don't care about the self-esteem of ice. Grant flattened the estimate on the counter. I'm not charging a contractor markup, but I'm not doing the work free. Good, he blinked. I don't want you working free, June said. I want an invoice. I was going to give you one. Then we agree. I don't like it. You're used to your father. Agreement made him suspicious. Grant tapped the paper near the labor line, half up front for materials. June wrote him a check from her personal account. The amount made her stomach tighten. She did not let her hand slow. He looked at the check before folding it. Mark, no? Why do you keep asking me that? Because he called me last night. June set the pen down. About what? You, the store, the apartment, Darlene's knee. Apparently he has sources. Darlene showed him the insurance drawer. I don't know what that means. Neither does Darlene. Grant slipped the check into his wallet. He thinks you're reacting. I am reacting. Things happened. He means emotionally. Everything people dislike becomes emotional when a woman does it. That sounds like something Elise would put on a coffee mug. Elise has excellent coffee mugs. Grant leaned against the counter. What do you want me to tell him? That you are replacing a rotten bathroom floor for a paying customer. He'll ask if it's safe for you to live up there. Tell him no. Tell him I plan to climb through the window on a rope. That would improve his week. Before June could answer, the front bell rang. Mark entered carrying a large white envelope and wearing his hospital badge. This time, it was Tuesday, so at least the badge had a reason. He took in Grant, the checkbook, and the estimate between them. Interesting, he said. Your sources are excellent, June replied. Grant collected his tape measure. I have an actual customer. So does Mom, apparently. She pays better than you. Mark waited until Grant left through the back. I wish one of you could have a conversation without turning it into a fencing match. He started it. You're 68. Then he had an unfair advantage. Mark put the envelope on the counter. The investment transfer forms were inside, prepared by June's attorney, according to the instructions she had given before the Sunday meeting. He had marked 3 signature lines with yellow flags. No rush, he said. June looked at him. I mean it. You brought them to my work. I was passing. You work 3 miles east of here. I wanted to see you. Then bring a muffin. Mark's mouth tightened. Do you still want to do this? The account is what you chose. I chose management of it. I didn't ask you to impoverish yourself. I'm not impoverished. After the transfer, the house and store are most of what you'll have. I also own the boat. You hate the boat? Yes, it's very dependable. He rested one hand on the envelope. You can change your mind? The offer surprised her. Mark had wanted the account. She had seen it in the way he checked its balance before he looked at the cabin deed or workshop inventory. But now he stood between her and the paperwork, as if protecting her from himself. I don't want to change my mind. Then let me hold it for you. It won't be mine if you hold it. If you need money later, I will ask. Mark looked toward the back room, where the new task light shone over Grant's old bench. 2 window screens leaned against the wall. What exactly is going on back there? Lena repairs small items. We charge labor and sell parts. You hired someone? Part-time. You added payroll while cutting inventory? Darlene has to reduce her hours, then reduce total hours. Did your hospital stop serving lunch when someone went on leave? A hospital isn't a failing hardware store. No. The gift shop is much nicer. He breathed out through his nose. I'm trying to understand the plan. There isn't a plan yet. There are tests. With your retirement, with my life. A customer entered carrying a broken storm window frame. Mark moved aside while June wrote an intake ticket. The man had already spoken to Lena on the phone and agreed to $30 if the corner brackets were reusable. When he left, Mark picked up the form. 60-day abandonment policy? Lena thought 30 was heartless. Who's Lena? Someone who asks what the work is worth before doing it. June signed the 3 flagged lines. Mark watched her initials go down in blue ink. She returned the forms to the envelope and held it out. For a second, He did not take it. Mom, you chose. He accepted the envelope. That doesn't mean I wanted you left with the worst thing. The sentence hung between them. June felt the store around her, the tired floor, humming lights, blue tape, old register. She could have heard his concern. Instead, she heard worse thing. I'm not left, she said. I'm here. Mark looked as if he wanted to repair the sentence, but could not find the part. He left with the account. Lena came from the back holding the repaired screen. He always wear a badge. He wants people to know he's authorized to worry, useful. Most families do it freelance. The new apartment floor began on Thursday. Grant tore out 3 layers of vinyl and found water damage around the toilet, but not as much as he had feared. June heard hammering above the store while she worked below. Dust sifted from the ceiling over fasteners. At 11, a customer named Peter Mills spent 25 minutes asking Lena how to replace the trap beneath his bathroom sink. Take a picture before you remove anything, Lena told him. I already removed it. Then take a picture of the empty space and regret the timing. He had purchased 2 wrong kits elsewhere. Lena opened a correct package, laid the pieces on the counter, and assembled them without tightening. Peter photographed every stage. You should teach a class, he said. No, Lena replied. June looked up. That afternoon, another customer needed to install a deadbolt. On Friday, a woman brought in a photograph of a dryer vent held together with duct tape. Saturday morning, mister. Avery asked if someone could show him how to recaulk the edge of his bathtub without making it look like cake frosting. We should teach a class, June said. Lena continued replacing a plug on an extension cord. No, people keep asking. People ask me to fix lawnmowers. I don't do that either. An hour after closing. Basic household repairs. Who pays me? The store. Who pays the store? The people attending. Darlene called from her stool. Nobody's paying to learn something on YouTube. People pay for someone not to laugh when they ask a question, June said. Lena stopped working. June thought of the man with the crushed pipe and the bag of wrong parts. She thought of Peter photographing an empty cabinet. 4 people, she said, $15 each. We teach shut-off valves and sink traps. They get a $10 store credit toward parts. That leaves $5 per person for an hour of teaching, setup, cleanup, and listening to stories about everybody's worst landlord. An hour and a half. You're getting worse at this. But Lena took a sheet of paper and began listing supplies. Only 4 people registered, including Peter, who had already fixed his sink trap, but wanted to learn why it leaked the first time. The evening of the class, June arranged folding chairs in the back room. She placed short lengths of copper pipe, plastic traps, valves, and wrenches on Grant's workbench. Darlene stayed after her shift, despite insisting the whole thing was foolish. At 6:10, 1 person had arrived. At 6:15, 2. June stood beside a plate of oatmeal cookies no one was eating and calculated the cost of Lena's time, store credit, supplies, and lights. At 6:20, all 4 folding chairs were occupied. Lena faced them with a valve in her left hand. First thing, she said, water does not care that you watched a video. Peter laughed too loudly. Lena showed them how to find a main shutoff, how to test it before creating an emergency, and why over-tightening caused more damage than caution did. She passed fittings around. People asked questions they had been saving for years. One woman admitted she had never used an adjustable wrench because she did not know which direction the movable jaw should face. Lena showed her without making the confession feel large. June stood near the doorway and watched 4 adults lean over the bench. Grant arrived halfway through carrying a box of smoke detectors for the apartment. He stayed in the hall, silent, until Lena handed out practice pieces. Then she spotted him. You know compression fittings? A little, he said. Good. Take that end. He obeyed. Afterward, the 4 attendees spent $93 beyond their store credits. Peter bought a tubing cutter he did not immediately need. Darlene packed the untouched cookies into napkins for everyone. When the last person left, Lena lowered herself onto the workbench. My hand hurts, she said. June's pleasure dimmed. Why didn't you say something? Because I know what hurting means. Grant gathered the practice pieces. You need fixtures mounted to boards. Less holding. Lena looked at him. You volunteering? No? Yes, June said. He gave his mother a flat look. She handed him the class earnings envelope. You wanted an invoice. For your floor, send another. Grant counted the bills and put them back. Keep it. Buy better cookies. He carried the smoke detectors upstairs. Lena watched him go. He chose the tools? Yes. And you chose this? June looked at the folding chairs, the scattered valves, and the $5 bill Mr. Crawford had given them, still visible through the repair envelope. I haven't decided, she said. Above them, Grant's drill started. The sound traveled through the ceiling like someone building an answer. Grant built the practice wall on a sheet of plywood and mounted it above the workbench. It had a faucet, a trap, 3 kinds of shut-off valve, and a section of copper pipe with enough fittings to resemble an instrument panel. He labeled nothing. If people don't know what they're looking at, labels would help, June said. If people know what they're looking at, they don't need the class. That was almost thoughtful. It's 9 in the morning. Don't expect another. Lena tested the valves, opening and closing each with her left hand. Grant had positioned the board low enough that she could work without raising her injured hand above her shoulder. She noticed. She did not thank him. Faucet's crooked, she said. Wall's crooked. You built the wall. Building is contagious. Their second class filled all 8 chairs. For the third, June accepted 10 registrations before mentioning it to Lena. No, Lena said. June continued labeling envelopes of store credit. They've already paid. Then give 2 refunds. We can fit 10. The room can. I can't. You won't have to hold the fittings now. That isn't the only work. June set down the envelopes. It's 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes after an 8-hour shift. Then clean up. Then everybody waits around to tell me what else is broken. They trust you. Trust still weighs something. Darlene studied the register as if it required complete concentration. June lowered her voice. I can help more. You hand out parts and promise dates. I run the class. You host it. That's different. The distinction irritated June because it was accurate. Lena flexed her right hand. The scar whitened across her knuckles. I'll do 10 this time, she said. After that, 8 maximum. And classes count toward my weekly hours, not on top of them. The store needs you during the day, then the store needs 2 of me. I only brought 1. June had spent much of her life taking whatever hour remained and calling it available. She had assumed competence meant doing the same. 8, she said, and we'll close the repair bench at 4 on class days. Lena nodded. Darlene waited until Lena went into the back. You could have told her you're the boss. I could tell the son I'm the boss. It would still go down. The classes led to another problem. People wanted tools they would use once. Peter Mills needed a basin wrench. Mr. Avery needed a caulk gun better than the bent one in his garage. A woman replacing cabinet hinges asked if she truly had to buy a drill for 6 holes. Walter had occasionally loaned tools to customers he liked, and then complained for months when they came back dirty. He had kept no records beyond names written on cardboard scraps. June bought 12 durable tools from a discounted supplier lot and painted their handles red. She created a rental sheet, required identification and deposits, and charged by the day. The first rented drill returned with a burned motor. You rented this to mix mortar? Lena asked the customer. No. There was gray powder packed into its vents. I was near mortar. June kept half the deposit. The customer argued until Lena placed the drill on the counter and tapped out a small pile of mortar dust. The second renter returned a tubing cutter polished cleaner than when it left. The third kept a ladder 2 extra days and paid the late fee without complaint. June wrote the results on the back of her weekly report. Repair bench. Growing. Classes, profitable if capped. Rentals, uncertain. Customers apparently lie to tools. She taped the report beside the 1-year calendar. The upstairs apartment was ready by the first week of May. Grant's imaginary stone floor was less offensive than promised. The walls were warm white, the handrail no longer moved, and the bathroom floor felt solid beneath June's feet. Grant installed smoke detectors in every room and 1 carbon monoxide detector near the bedroom. You want one above the stove too? June asked. In case I make toast? Don't remove the batteries. I know how alarms work. You once hit one with a broom. It was chirping. It needed a battery. It stopped chirping. He handed her 2 keys on a plain metal ring. Front and back. Don't label them with the address. I label everything. That's helpful to the person who finds them. June resisted explaining that she had been labeling keys since before he could spell key. Thank you, she said instead. Grant looked around the small living room. Most of Walter's abandoned stock had been moved downstairs for clearance. The reindeer head remained in a corner because neither of them had decided what category it belonged to. You're really moving in. I didn't spend $9,860 for the view. You spent $10,412. The plumbing surprise was your fault. The pipe had been leaking since Clinton. Then it was Clinton's fault. He smiled, but uneasiness stayed around his eyes. June hired Elise to list the family house. She asked her at the kitchen table, where the four of them had eaten thousands of meals and conducted fewer than 10 honest conversations. Elise arrived with a market analysis in a leather portfolio and kept it closed until June finished speaking. You want me to handle it? You're the best realtor I know. I'm the only realtor you know socially. You're the best realtor I've checked. Elise sat straighter. You checked? I'm not hiring my daughter. I'm hiring an agent who happens to have misplaced my spare key twice. I returned it both times. You left it in a flower pot. That's where people leave spare keys. That's where burglars look for them. Elise opened the portfolio. Her professional voice appeared, steadier and less wounded than the one she used as a daughter. She discussed comparable sales, necessary repairs, photographs, and whether June could tolerate strangers opening her closets. They'll be disappointed, June said. Everyone's disappointed by other people's closets. They agreed on a listing price without fighting. Then Elise walked through the house with a notepad. In the bedroom, she paused at the grocery box, holding the wrapped mugs. You pack those? I'm packing everything I'm taking. You could leave the house furnished for photographs. I don't plan to sleep standing up. Elise looked into the closet where Walter's shirt still occupied half the rod. What are you doing with Dad's clothes? Donating most. I might want one. June waited. A flannel, Elise said. For the cabin. The cabin entered the room like another person. How is it? June asked. Fine. The water came on? Eventually. And the septic? Elise turned a hanger so the shirts faced the same direction. The inspector is being dramatic. The inspector failed it. He said the distribution box is cracked. He also said the field may need replacing. That's not certain. No. It could be $12,000 for nothing. It would be $12,000 for sewage. Elise faced her. Did you know it would need replacement when you offered it? I gave you the inspection. You knew I wanted the cabin. Yes. You could have said, Elise, don't choose this. You are 43 years old and sell property for a living. That's cruel. It's true. You warned me about the softboard on the dock 3 times. I warned you about the septic before you chose. You heard lake. Elise looked away first. June wanted to soften the answer. She also wanted, with an anger that embarrassed her, for one of her children to discover that love did not make upkeep disappear. I'm not asking you for money, Elise said. I didn't say you were. You got that look. I have one face. You have at least 12. She chose one of Walter's red flannel shirts, folded it over her arm, and went back downstairs. June stayed beside the half-empty closet. By the end of the week, she moved a bed, 2 chairs, her clothes, the kitchen clock, and the box of mugs upstairs. She left the dining set, the heavy bedroom furniture, and most of the dishes for staging. Her first night above the store, she woke at 2 because she could not hear the clock. She lay in the unfamiliar dark, listening for the refrigerator, pipes, or Walter's breathing. A delivery truck shifted gears on Main Street. The building settled with a knock somewhere below. At 4, cold air woke her again. The apartment thermostat read 58. The vents breathed nothing. June put on her robe and went downstairs. The store's furnace had stopped too. She found the reset switch, waited, and heard the unit attempt to start. It produced a low groan, then silence. Outside, an unseasonable cold front pressed sleet against the windows. June called the heating company at 6. Their earliest visit was noon. She opened the store at 8 wearing a sweater beneath her red Mercer hardware apron. 2 space heaters ran behind the counter, plugged into separate circuits because Lena had made her promise. Darlene arrived, felt the air, and said, Absolutely not. We're open. My knee knows when pipes will freeze. Your knee predicted rain yesterday. This is sleet. Lena came in next, took one look at June's clothes, and walked toward the stairs. Where are you going? Upstairs. You're working downstairs. Lena returned carrying June's pillow. The pillowcase still bore an indentation. You slept here. Technically, I slept up there. In the cold. I had blankets. You could have called somebody. I called the heating company. I meant your family. They don't repair furnaces, neither do you. June took the pillow from her and carried it to the office. Lena followed. "You tell them?" Lena asked. "There is nothing to tell. You moved into an empty building, the heat died, and you're standing here pretending your lips are always that color. I'm not pretending anything. That's the problem. You think if you state a fact calmly enough, it stops being bad." The furnace technician arrived at 1:30. The blower motor had failed. Replacement, labor, and emergency service would cost $2,940. The part would not arrive until the next afternoon. June approved it. They closed at 4 when the temperature inside fell below 50. Darlene went home. Lena refused until June did. "I live here," June said. "Not tonight. I have 2 heaters in the office. You have a house. It's staged. The bed is here, then go to Elise's." "No." "Mark's? No." "Grant's?" June gathered the repair tickets. "We're finished with names." Lena watched her for a moment, then put on her coat. "Fine," she said. "Freeze independent." After she left, June locked the door and carried both heaters into the office. She made a nest from the upstairs bedding on the floor because the office was smaller and easier to warm. At 7, Mark called. "How's the apartment?" "Comfortable enough." At 7:15, Elise called about a showing. "Everything's fine," June told her. Grant texted a photograph of a mounted kitchen cabinet and asked whether she wanted the old reindeer head for Christmas. She wrote, "Keep dreaming." By 10, the office was warm if she sat between the heaters. The rest of the building creaked in the cold. June opened the desk drawer for a pen and found Walter's reading glasses where she had left them. Beneath them was the calendar page with "Decide" written 1 year away. She took out the week's sales report and subtracted $2,940. The classes, repairs, and rentals disappeared beneath the furnace bill as if they had never happened. June did not tear up the report. She wrote beside the loss, "Heat is not optional." Then she lay down on the office floor, pulled the blankets to her chin, and listened to the 2 space heaters argue with winter. At 1:16, one of the heaters clicked off. June woke with her cheek against the office rug and knew from the silence which one had stopped. The outlet strip had tripped. She reset it, waited for the heater to hum, then lay down again. At 3, sleet changed to snow. At 5:30, headlights crossed the ceiling. A car door slammed in the parking lot, followed by 3 hard knocks on the front glass. Lena stood outside, holding a thermos and a red wool blanket. June unlocked the door. "You left," she said. "I changed my mind. That is allowed during business hours. You look terrible. I slept on a floor." "Yes. That's one reason." Lena entered and locked the door behind herself. She filled a paper cup from the thermos and handed it to June. "Coffee with cream. I take mine black. You take this one warm." The blanket smelled faintly of cedar. June wrapped it around her shoulders despite herself. Lena looked toward the office. Both heaters running? Separate circuits. "Anybody inspect the outlets upstairs before you plugged in the refrigerator?" Grant did. "And these? They've been there since Walter was alive, so has lead paint." June drank the coffee. "You came back to insult my electrical system? I came back because I knew you'd stay. Then your trip was unnecessary." Lena took out her phone. "Who are you calling?" Grant. "No. You need someone to check the load before those heaters burn the place down. They've run all night. That is not a safety certification." June reached for the phone. Lena raised it beyond her comfortable reach, an unfair advantage from a woman 3 inches taller. "This is my home. This is my workplace. If it burns, I'm unemployed again." The again changed the argument. June lowered her hand. Lena called Grant. He arrived 27 minutes later, wearing jeans over flannel sleep pants. He carried a voltage tester, a tool bag, and an expression that made June want to send him home before he spoke. "You told me it was comfortable," he said. "It was less uncomfortable than outside." "That's cute." "Thank you." It wasn't. He checked the office circuits, the outlets upstairs, and the temporary heater placement. One receptacle in the bedroom had loosened behind its cover. He replaced it, then moved the upstairs refrigerator to a different circuit. "You shouldn't run both heaters in here with the copier," he said. "The copier is off. Keep it off. I can distinguish cold from fire." Grant crouched beside the second heater. "Dad slept in the store once when the old boiler quit. I remember. He got pneumonia. He had a chest infection. He told everyone he got it saving the pipes. He liked a story with himself in the middle." Grant looked up. You were here too, weren't you? June folded the red blanket more tightly around herself. Walter had refused to leave the building during a January freeze in 1997. June had brought blankets and stayed because he had not eaten. He fell asleep before midnight. She spent 6 hours draining lines and moving heaters, then drove him to urgent care 2 days later when he could not stop coughing. That was different, she said. Because he was doing it? Because we couldn't afford a burst pipe. Grant stood. And now we still can't. Lena watched them from the doorway. Grant zipped his tool bag. I'm not telling Mark. I didn't ask you to lie. No, you just arranged the facts so everybody gets to misunderstand. The words struck harder than his volume warranted. He picked up the bad outlet and set it on Walter's desk. Call if the breaker trips, he said to Lena. My breaker. Either of you. He left before 7. June opened at 8. The store was 46 degrees. Darlene arrived, took off neither coat nor gloves, and spent the morning at the register looking like a dissatisfied crossing guard. Customers shopped quickly. The cold discouraged conversation and encouraged the sale of space heaters, pipe insulation, and weather stripping. By noon, they had sold every safe portable heater in stock. Order more? Darlene asked. Cold ends tomorrow. What if it doesn't? Then people will buy them elsewhere? Walter would have reordered. June did not. The furnace motor arrived the next afternoon. Warm air returned to the vents at 4:20, carrying the dusty smell of a machine resuming an argument. June stood beneath the nearest register until her face hurt from the heat. The following week, Mark brought soup. He placed 3 labeled containers in her apartment refrigerator and said nothing about the furnace until June thanked him. Grant told you. He told me the refrigerator outlet was loose. Then how did you know to bring soup? You always eat crackers when something breaks. I eat crackers all the time. That's why it took me 2 days to be certain. He inspected none of the rooms. He did not say condo or safe. Before leaving, he adjusted the front doormat so its edge would not catch her shoe. June let him. The store recovered the furnace costs slowly. Warm weather brought screens, garden hoses, and customers carrying photographs of outdoor faucets damaged by the freeze. Lena suggested assembling the parts people repeatedly needed, instead of sending them through 4 aisles. Their first kit fit into a clear plastic box. Replacement hose, bib, screws, sealant, tape, written instructions, and a card explaining when to stop and call a plumber. Too many parts, Darlene said. It's everything they need, Lena replied. It'll look expensive. It is expensive to buy the wrong things twice. June priced the kit $6 below the individual total and placed 4 near the counter, all sold by Saturday. They built toilet repair kits, screen kits, and what Lena named the landlord special. 2 doorstops, outlet covers, wall anchors, spackle, a scraper, and a small container of touch-up white. Which white? June asked. The color every landlord calls white even when it's beige. Elise would have had opinions. Grant began sending customers without admitting he was sending them. The first said, "Your son told me you carry hinges that don't sag." The second needed cabinet shims and gave Grant's business card to June as if it were a prescription. The third arrived with a materials list in Grant's handwriting. At the bottom, he had written, "Ask June, not Darlene, about contractor pricing." Darlene read it upside down. "I can see that. He means because I handle the accounts. He means because he's ungrateful." June put the card in the register drawer beside Walter's cinnamon gum. By the end of May, monthly sales were higher than the previous May for the first time in 4 years. Expenses were higher too. Payroll, insurance, apartment work, the furnace. Improvement on paper proved to be a creature with many teeth. June placed the profit and loss statement beneath the 1-year calendar. They had lost $3,106 that month. Better was not the same as good. Elise arrived near closing on a Wednesday. She carried no tape measure. Mark came in 5 minutes after her, which told June the visit had been arranged. "Where's Grant?" June asked. "Parking," Elise said. "Does he require help?" He said he had to finish a call. Grant entered through the back before June could ask more. He avoided her eyes and leaned against the workbench. Lena gathered repair tickets. "We're closed?" "We are now," June said. Darlene had already left for a pre-operative appointment. Lena looked at the 3 Mercer children, took her jacket, and said, "I'll lock the loading door." "You can stay," June said. "This smells like family." She left. Elise placed a folder on the counter. Not one of June's folders. This one bore the logo of a development company based 2 counties west. What is that? An offer. For the house, for the store property. June did not touch it. You canceled the broker. I canceled the broker. This came through a commercial contact who has a client expanding into smaller markets. You told them Mercer Hardware was available. I told them the circumstances. What circumstances? That the property may become available after an orderly liquidation. June looked at Grant. Did you know? Not until yesterday. And you? Mark nodded. I reviewed the terms. Of course you did. It's a legitimate offer, Mom. How fortunate. Elise opened the folder. They'll pay enough to clear the business debt, cover closing costs, and leave you with a solid reserve. They're not asking you to vacate immediately. You'd have 90 days to move the business, to liquidate it. The back room suddenly seemed loud. A task light buzzed above the repair bench. Water dripped once in the utility sink. June read the first page. The number was not insulting. It was not miraculous either. After the bank, taxes, and the remaining bills, she would be secure if she lived carefully. Combined with the sale of the house, she could buy one of Elise's beige condominiums and spend the rest of her life never worrying about a furnace motor. The company wanted a quick close and a clean building. No inventory, no tenants, no repair bench. What are they putting here? June asked. Elise hesitated. A home medical supply store is one possibility, Mark added, or small format retail. So they don't know. It doesn't matter, Elise said. It matters to the person selling. Why? Grant shifted his weight. Mom. June turned to him. He looked at the offer rather than at her. It's more than you'd get if sales fall again. Of the 3 voices, his was the one that hurt. Elise misunderstood June's silence as progress. The offer expires in 10 days, she said. You don't have to decide tonight. No, June said. Apparently I only had to be offered tonight. Mark moved closer to the counter. Nobody went behind your back to hurt you. What comforting precision. We watched you sleep beside 2 space heaters. June looked at Grant. He met her eyes now. I told them. You said you weren't telling Mark. I changed my mind. Lena's phrase returned with none of its warmth. June closed the folder. She did not tear it. She did not order them out. She carried it into Walter's office and placed it beneath the calendar, directly under Decide. When she returned, her children were still standing where she had left them. The store opens at 8, she said. Elise's face tightened. What does that mean? It means if you're staying, somebody needs to turn off the task light. Then June went upstairs, leaving all 3 of them below, with the key still in her pocket. No one followed her upstairs. June stood behind the apartment door and listened to the muffled movement below. A drawer opened. The workbench light clicked off. The front bell sounded once as someone left, then again, then a third time. Grant locked the door. She knew because he tested it twice. In the morning, the development folder remained beneath the calendar. A yellow note had been placed on top in Mark's handwriting. Please read everything. Grant had drawn a line through please and written, don't tell her what to do. Elise had added, both of you are exhausting. June removed the note, folded it into a square, and put it in the register drawer. She read the offer before opening. The purchase price was firm, inspection period 20 days, closing 45. Mercer Hardware would receive 90 days after closing to liquidate inventory and vacate, but June would pay rent during that period. The developer could cancel for environmental or structural problems. June could not. It was less generous by page 9. At 8:30, Lena arrived and placed an electric kettle on the repair bench. What's that? You don't have hot water for tea downstairs. We sell coffee. You sell something brown near a coffee maker? Darlene was not scheduled until noon. Without her, the store felt larger. Lena plugged in the kettle. You take the offer? How do you know? I have eyes. Your children came in together carrying a folder and left separately carrying guilt. It's a fair offer. That wasn't my question. I have 10 days. Lena spooned tea into a metal infuser. What happens to us? The plainness of it stopped June. Darlene had her surgery scheduled for June. Lena had been at Mercer Hardware less than 3 months. Neither had retirement money stored behind a wall. The decision June's children called safety would travel outward into other people's rent, groceries, and doctor bills. If I accept, the store closes, June said. There would be 90 days, assuming the sale goes through. And after, I don't know. Lena nodded once. Fair. It isn't decided. Everything's decided eventually. You think I should take it? I think you should know whether you're keeping the store because you want it or because everybody told you not to. June frowned. Those are not the only choices. They're two popular ones. What would you do? With the building? With the offer? Lena lifted her scarred hand. I don't own a building. I own a 14-year-old car and a vice. This affects your job. Then don't make me the reason. I already spent years working for people who called it family when they needed free Saturday hours. I have never asked you to work free. You accepted a workbench from your son. He said he was storing it. You both lie politely. The kettle clicked off. Lena poured water over the tea and watched it darken. If you close, tell me early. If you stay, stop improvising long enough to figure out what staying costs. Then she carried her cup to the back room. June spent the day figuring out what staying cost. At 10, she called the roofing company that had inspected the lumber shed. At 11, she reviewed the banknote schedule. At noon, she pulled 3 years of monthly sales and separated weather from decline as well as she could. Walter's records contained gaps, but the checks did not lie. At 2, she called Ralph Donnelly about his store account. Ralph laid tile, repaired rental houses, and had bought from Mercer Hardware for 19 years. He owed $612. Walter had extended him credit whenever work slowed. June had continued because Ralph always paid eventually. His phone had been disconnected. The address on his account belonged to an empty duplex. A contractor at the counter said Ralph had gone south for work, though he did not know where. Darlene saw the unpaid balance on June's screen. He'll make it right. He left no number. Ralph's had trouble. So is the store. Walter never embarrassed him over money. I called his disconnected phone. I doubt he blushed. June printed every informal credit account. 9 customers owed a total of $4,318. She sent statements and suspended new charges until balances were current. 2 people paid that week. 1 came in furious. 1 mailed a check with a note apologizing for forgetting. Ralph remained gone. June wrote $612 under the heading, Money I May Never See. Then she added the furnace, the projected roof repair, payroll, inventory, insurance, utilities, bank payments, apartment rent she would no longer have to pay elsewhere, and the minimum amount she needed to live without using the business register as a purse. The arithmetic did not reward courage. To give Mercer Hardware 1 full year, she would have to sell the boat, limit new inventory, and keep monthly losses below a number that Winter had already exceeded. Repairs and classes had to cover Lena's wages by September. Rental tools had to earn back their cost by December. The unused warehouse space needed a tenant. If the roof estimate increased, the year shortened. June made the rules anyway. She printed 1 page, 1-year operating limits, maximum personal cash contribution. Minimum quarterly sales, no new informal credit, no expansion debt. Sell if 3 consecutive months exceeded the loss limit. Final decision date. The date marked on Walter's calendar. She read it until the words no longer looked brave or foolish, only specific. On the 8th day, June called her children back to the store. They came on Sunday again. This time, there was no lemon loaf. Mark brought his legal pad, then left it in the car after June looked at him. Elise brought the development folder, pristine, except for the bent corner June had caused. Grant arrived last and stood near his old workbench. June gave each of them a copy of the operating limits. Mark read first. Elise watched June before looking down. Grant folded his page once but did not put it away. I'm declining the offer, June said. Elise closed her eyes. Mark asked, based on this? Yes. This is aggressive. It has stop conditions. You're assuming sales continue improving. I'm setting a minimum. If they don't meet it, I stop. The developer won't come back at the same price. I know. Elise opened the folder. Do you? Because they might not come back at all. Another winter, another roof problem, a bad quarter. This building could become unsellable except at land value. Yes. You say yes like knowing the risk makes it disappear. No. Knowing it is how I decide whether to take it. Elise turned to Grant. Are you going to say anything? He looked at the plywood practice wall. She's got numbers. Mark has numbers. Mom has a dare typed on store letterhead. June felt that sentence but did not answer it. Mark placed his copy on the counter. Can you genuinely stop if you hit the limits? I stopped paying Ralph Donnelly's credit. That isn't the same. It was unpleasant. Mom? Yes, I can stop. Mark did not look convinced, but he nodded. Elise looked toward Grant again. You said this was too much for her. I said the building was too much for one person. And apparently she hired Lena. Grant. He pushed away from the bench. What do you want me to say? Take the offer so none of us has to worry. I want you to say what you said to me. June turned. Which was? Grant's jaw tightened. Elise answered for him. That you're doing all the things he wanted to do years ago. The room changed. June looked at the repair bench, rental board, clear plastic kits near the register. What things? Grant stared at Elise. That wasn't yours. You weren't saying it. Saying what? June asked. He pressed both hands against the workbench, fingers spread over the old maple. When I was 29, Dad asked if I wanted to take over. June heard the sentence but could not fit it into any year she remembered. He did not. Okay. Grant, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm saying he never told me. He told me you both had talked about it. We hadn't. He said I could start buying in. I worked up numbers. Contractor accounts, deliveries, tool rental. Ordering common repair kits online for pickup. Not classes. That part was new. June looked at Mark and Elise. Their faces told her they had not known either. What happened? She asked. I showed him. And? He said I was trying to turn Mercer Hardware into a cheap warehouse. I said the store was dying. Grant, he withdrew the offer, said I didn't have loyalty. June remembered a week when Walter had come home furious, slamming cabinet doors and complaining that Grant thought he knew everything because he owned a van. She had believed they were fighting over the workshop. Why didn't you tell me? Grant gave a short laugh without humor. I thought you knew. I didn't. He said you agreed. I didn't. You always agreed. The words were quiet. June stepped back as if the counter had moved. That isn't fair? No. Grant looked at the workbench beneath his hands. It wasn't. Mark said his name, warning or comfort, but Grant kept going. Every time he dressed me down in front of customers, you explained him afterward. He's under pressure. He doesn't mean it. You know how your dad is. You made him easier to live with, Mom. You never made him stop. June's first impulse was to defend the years Grant had reduced to silence. She had argued with Walter privately. She had protected Grant's pay, defended his estimates, replaced tools Walter threw away. She had loved them both through 1,000 collisions neither man remembered clearly. But she also remembered Grant's face at 22, closed like a door. I should have stopped him, she said. Grant's eyes lifted. I didn't know about the offer. I swear to you I didn't. But I should have asked why you left. I let him answer for you. Nobody moved. Elise lowered herself onto a stool. Mark stared at the floor. Grant rubbed one thumb over a saw cut in the bench. I don't want the store. I know. I don't want you thinking this means I do. I know that too. The keys rested in June's pocket. She could feel every tooth through the fabric. Are you ashamed of this place? She asked. Or of him? Grant took a long time. Sometimes I can't tell the difference. June nodded. It was not forgiveness. It was more honest than forgiveness would have been. She picked up the development folder and held it out to Elise. I'm declining. Elise did not take it. After all that, this is still your answer? Because of all that, I need it to be my answer. That doesn't make it wise. No. The limits make it as wise as I can manage. Elise finally accepted the folder. June looked at all three of them. You chose first, she said. I'm not asking you to choose again. I'm telling you what I chose. Outside, a car slowed beside the dark storefront, waited, then drove on. No one reached for the keys. This time, June did not need them to. Elise sent the rejection before noon the next day. She copied June, Mark, and Grant on the email and wrote only, My mother has decided not to proceed. The developer's representative answered 12 minutes later. Understood. Please keep us in mind if circumstances change. June printed both messages and filed them with the offer. She did not know whether she was preserving evidence of resolve or keeping the address of a possible future buyer. For 2 weeks, Elise did not call except about the house listing. In those conversations, she was entirely professional. She discussed feedback, adjusted photographs, and recommended reducing the price by $5,000 after 3 buyers complained that the primary bathroom needed updating. "The bathroom works," June said. "People don't pay extra for working. They expect working. It has a double sink. It has wallpaper with ivy. Ivy grows outdoors without harming property values." Elise reduced the price. An offer came 3 days later from a retired couple moving closer to downtown. It was below asking, above June's minimum, and contingent on an inspection. June accepted after Elise negotiated the closing date forward by 2 weeks. "You did good work," June told her. "I usually do." "I know." The compliment did not fix everything, but Elise's voice warmed by half a degree. Darlene's knee replacement took place the same week as the home inspection. She called June from the hospital, while still foggy from anesthesia. "They stole my good sock." "You wore it into surgery?" "I wore 2. "There's one now?" asked the nurse. "They're all in on it." June promised to investigate the missing sock and covered Darlene's shifts. Without Darlene, every ordinary task became visible. Register balancing, shelf labels, returns, phone calls, special orders. The customer who wanted to discuss the history of every pocket knife before buying batteries. Lena worked her 16 hours, then 20, then 24. On the second Friday, June found her behind the repair bench trying to loosen a corroded lamp, fitting with her injured hand braced against her ribs. "Stop. I'm almost done. Your hand is shaking. So is the lamp." June unplugged the soldering iron. Lena looked up sharply. "Don't do that while I'm working. You're finished. You don't get to decide what hurts me. I pay workers' compensation insurance. I get 1 vote. You're short-staffed. I am not solving that with your hand." Lena released the lamp. Her fingers remained curled for a moment before slowly opening. June saw anger in her face, and beneath it, something worse. Fear that usefulness could vanish again if she admitted a limit. "I'll hire help," June said. "With what money? The same imaginary money paying for everything else." "Terrible accountant. I've been called worse." "By your daughter?" "Mostly." June called Manuel Ortega, who had handled deliveries and stock at Mercer Hardware for 14 years before Walter cut him to occasional work during the decline. Manny was 54, broad through the shoulders, and so soft-spoken that customers leaned toward him. He arrived in a clean work shirt bearing the old Mercer Hardware patch. "Still fits," he said. "The shirt or the job? We'll find out." June offered 3 afternoons a week, plus deliveries. Manny asked whether Walter's rule against music in the warehouse still applied. "Walter's rules are under review," June said. By lunch, a small radio played country music beside the receiving desk. Manny took over lifting, deliveries, and the work Lena's hand should not perform. He also remembered which customers had steep basement stairs, unfriendly dogs, or a habit of requesting one little extra thing after a delivery fee was paid. When Mr. Avery asked if someone could install 2 safer locks and a handrail at his back steps, June gave him Grant's number. Grant was booked for 6 weeks. "Then you do it," Mr. Avery said. "We sell hardware. You put together that sink class." "That was on a wall. My back door is on a wall." Lena suggested a paid house call service limited to small work. Diagnosis, measurements, lock changes, faucet replacements, grab bars where proper framing existed. No roofs, no electrical panels, no jobs requiring permits. Manny would handle the heavy work. Lena could diagnose and prepare materials. June would schedule. "Who decides what's small?" Manny asked. "Me," Lena and June said together. Manny looked between them. "That sounds efficient." Their first house call was Mr. Avery's. His back steps tilted slightly toward a hedge. The wooden rail wobbled beneath June's hand. "Grant would replace all of this," Manny said. Mr. Avery asked for a handrail. "He needs steps. He needs both." They explained the difference to Harold. He complained about the cost, then admitted he avoided the back door when it rained. June called Grant for a referral. He sent a carpenter who repaired the steps while Manny installed the rail and locks. Mercer Hardware sold every part, charged for the visit, and earned less than June expected. "Mr. Avery began using the back door again. Word spread slowly. A widower needed window latches. A retired nurse wanted 3 grab bars, but refused to call a medical equipment company because, as she told June, they hear your age and start selling you your funeral. June understood. They made house calls 2 mornings a week and charged enough to cover travel, labor, and insurance. When people protested, June showed them the fee before scheduling. Some declined. Most sounded relieved to know the amount before anyone entered their home. The lumber shed roof did not care about relief. A summer storm tore loose 2 sheets of metal and sent water down the west wall. Manny moved lumber, while June and Lena covered shelving with tarps. Grant arrived after the rain with a ladder, climbed halfway, then came down. "Don't," he said. "I didn't ask you to. I'm saying it before you do. I don't climb wet roofs. You climbed the garage roof when you were 60. I was 59. Grant called a roofing crew he trusted. The new estimate was higher than the spring number by $3,800. June sold Walter's boat. She hated the boat because it was loud, expensive, and smelled permanently of gasoline. Walter had loved it. Every summer, he polished its red hull and announced they would use it more that year. They never did. Grant helped her uncover it at the storage lot. Dust had settled beneath the tarp. Walter's life jacket remained hooked over the driver's seat. June found 2 peppermint candies in the glove box fused to their wrappers. "You don't have to sell," Grant said. "The roof isn't going to accept the boat. You could use house money. That money is for me. The store pays for the store. You own both. That doesn't mean they should eat from the same bowl." Grant folded the tarp. "You sound like Dad. Your father poured money into things and called it hope. I'm selling one thing to pay for another. You really hated this boat. I hated waiting on this boat. For what? For him to take me somewhere in it." The answer escaped before June could inspect it. Grant looked toward the rows of stored campers and trailers. Did he know? He knew I got seasick. That isn't what I asked. June touched the cracked vinyl of Walter's seat. Probably not. They sold the boat to a mechanic from Terre Haute who pointed out every flaw and paid a fair price anyway. June kept Walter's life jacket until she reached the store, then put it in the clearance bin. It sold the next morning. The roof took most of the boat money. The remainder paid for insulation along the warehouse wall, which made half the unused space rentable. Grant knew a cabinet maker named Mara Chen, who had outgrown her garage but did not need a full commercial shop. She toured the warehouse, measured the loading door, and objected to the country station. "I can change it," Manny said, "to anything without steel guitar. Rent's higher for that." Mara signed a 1-year lease for the west section. The monthly payment was modest. It covered the banknote's interest and part of the utilities. More important, she bought supplies and sent clients through the store when they needed hardware. June wrote warehouse rent beside the sale of the boat on her monthly report. One brought money in. One had removed a thing Walter loved. The numbers did not show the difference. The family house closed in August. June walked through it alone before turning over the keys. The buyers had requested that the kitchen clock remain. She had accidentally packed it, then brought it back. It clicked above the stove in the empty room. Elise waited outside with the closing folder. She wore Walter's red flannel over a summer blouse, sleeves rolled to her elbows. "The septic contractor starts Monday," she said when June joined her. "You found one?" "I found 3. The least alarming estimate was $16,000. June locked the front door for the final time. "Mark says the cabin is my responsibility." "He's right." Grant said the same thing with more profanity. "He's also right." Elise tucked the house keys into the folder. "I might have to borrow against it. That is one option. You could help." There it was, spoken at last. June looked at her daughter. Elise's chin was lifted, but her fingers worried the edge of Walter's cuff. "I could," June said, "but then I would be paying for the thing you chose while using what I kept to pay for the store none of you wanted." Elise looked away. "When you say it like that, it sounds ugly. It sounds expensive. I thought we'd all use the cabin. Did you ask them?" "They should want to." June heard years of herself in those 3 words. She touched the flannel sleeve. "Ask them anyway." Elise did. Mark refused to contribute. Grant offered labor on the dock, but not the septic system. Elise took a loan and complained about both brothers to June without once asking for money again. Summer sales held. September dipped. October rose when the first cold nights brought furnace filters, weather stripping, and pipe insulation. At the end of November, June closed the books and stared at the result. Mercer Hardware had earned $1,184 after expenses. She called Lena and Manny into the office. Darlene, still walking with a cane but back for 3 short shifts, followed without invitation. "Are we in trouble?" Darlene asked. "Always," June said. She turned the report around. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Manny said, "That all?" Lena elbowed him. "I mean, good," he said. "Very good small number." Darlene sat in Walter's squeaky chair. He'd never believe it. June looked at the one-year calendar above her desk. 5 months remained before the date underlined in black. 1 month doesn't prove anything, she said. No, Lena replied, but it counts. June wrote $1,184 on the back of the first report, beneath $426.11. Then she put both pages under the calendar where the offer had once been. Darlene studied the profit figure and said, "Do we get bonuses?" "No," June said. "Worth asking?" Manny pointed to the report. "Could buy better radio." "No," Lena said. "Also worth asking." The $1,184 remained in the business account. By the middle of December, it had been absorbed by holiday payroll, an insurance installment, and a special order Walter had placed the previous year and somehow scheduled to repeat. 6 artificial fireplace inserts arrived on a truck. June stood on the loading dock staring at them. "Didn't know we sold fireplaces," Manny said. "We don't. Truck says we do." The supplier would accept a return with freight and restocking fees that equaled almost half the invoice. June put 1 insert on the sales floor, listed 2 online, and called 3 contractors. Grant bought one for a basement remodel at cost. Mara Chen bought another for her parents. A customer who had come in for picture hooks purchased the display model after sitting in front of its plastic flames for 10 minutes. The remaining 3 sold by February. Walter would call that instinct, Darlene said. "Walter scheduled a mistake," June replied. "Still sold. That makes it a successful mistake. Winter gave them many." A shipment of snow shovels arrived after the largest storm. The rental drain snake clogged with something nobody was willing to identify. A house call customer blamed Manny for a scratch that was visible in the photograph taken before he entered the room. June refunded nothing. She paid to replace what the store damaged, documented what it did not, and learned that fairness sounded rude to people accustomed to getting tired proprietors to surrender. January lost $2,730. February lost $1,906. The numbers stayed beneath June's limit, but only because the warehouse rent and repair bench kept them there. Classes slowed during bad weather. Darlene returned for 3 shifts a week and walked without the cane, though she carried it in her car in case someone needs threatening. On the first Monday in March, Mark came in carrying a brass doorknob and none of his usual paperwork. "This sticks," he said. "Good morning." "Morning. Is it attached to a door?" "I removed it. That's progress." He placed it on the repair bench. The knob was from an older interior lock set, heavy and well-made. Lena examined the spindle. "Paint in the mechanism?" "We can clean it." 25? That seems high. It seemed lower before you spoke. Mark looked at June. "Lena handles estimates," she said. He accepted the ticket. Then he remained at the counter. June opened a carton of furnace filters and waited. "You know a foundation contractor?" he asked. "Grant does. I'd rather not involve Grant yet." "Then I know Grant." Mark pressed his lips together. The investment account he had chosen was no longer intact. He had withdrawn most of it to purchase a duplex with a colleague from the hospital, planning to renovate the kitchens and rent both units. The colleague had underestimated the work. The inspection had missed movement along the rear foundation. A tenant had left after a plumbing failure. Mark delivered each fact in a controlled voice, as if presenting a quarterly variance. "How much?" June asked. "For the foundation or everything?" That answered me. "It isn't catastrophic. Then why can't Grant know? He'll enjoy it. Grant enjoys lumber and proving people use the wrong screw. He does not enjoy you losing money." Mark looked toward the task wall. "I told you the store was financially irrational." "Yes. And then I did this." "Yes. You don't have to agree so efficiently." June set down the filter. "I could tell you that everybody makes mistakes, but you would hear that as permission to make another. I could tell you I warned you, but I didn't. I could offer money, and you would either refuse or begin explaining why taking it is responsible." Mark's shoulders dropped slightly. "What's left? I can call Grant or you can." He looked at the doorknob Lena had taken apart. "Can you call him while I'm not here?" "No." "You've gotten difficult. I have more time now." Mark called Grant from the parking lot. They argued for 12 minutes. Grant inspected the duplex the next morning and found the foundation repair serious but less extensive than the first estimate. Mark sold part of his remaining investments at a loss to pay for it. He did not ask June for money. Grant did not make a joke in her hearing. A week later, Grant brought a cabinet door into the store. It was walnut, narrow and tall, with a recessed geometric pattern cut across the center. One corner had never been sanded. "You carry this hinge?" he asked. June turned the door over. 2 shallow pencil marks crossed the back. Beneath them, Walter had written G's pattern, adjusted. "What is it?" she asked. "A design I made when I was 27. Dad said it was too busy." He copied it, adjusted it. June ran her finger over Walter's handwriting. Grant had found 3 unfinished doors and a half-built cabinet shoved behind lumber in the workshop. The joinery was Walter's. The pattern was Grant's. "He never showed you?" "No." Maybe he intended to. He had 12 years. June looked at the unsanded corner. Walter could spend a very long time intending things. Grant set the door against the counter. "I thought I'd finish it. That's a good idea. Would you want it upstairs?" June knew what he was offering. Not the cabinet. A place for the object to mean something, without settling who had been right. "If it fits," she said, "I'll measure, before you build. Still your son." He found the correct hinges in aisle 4, paid for them despite June's objection, and left the door beside the workbench until closing. That evening, June turned Walter's calendar to March. The date underlined in black had arrived. She took down every monthly report and spread them across the office floor. The store had not met every hope. It had met every condition. No 3 consecutive months exceeded the loss limit. Quarterly sales had increased. The repair bench covered Lena's wages and part of Manny's. Tool rentals had earned back 68% of their cost, not 100, but the lost amount was small enough that June changed the target instead of pretending it had been met. The roof was sound. Informal credit had fallen to $900. Ralph Donnelly still owed $612. June wrote it off. The year as a whole showed a loss. Without the furnace and roof, it would have shown a small profit. June refused to remove costs merely because she disliked them. Buildings failed. Winter came. A viable store had to survive both. She carried the reports upstairs and placed them around the dining table. At 11, she called Lena. "Something wrong?" Lena answered, "No." "You don't call at 11 for no. I made the decision." Silence, then the sound of sheets moving. "And 6 more months. That's not a decision. That's an extension." The winter losses were within limit. Contractor sales are increasing. Warehouse rent is stable. 6 months will show whether warm season growth repeats. "You sound disappointed. I'm tired. Those are different things." "Not at 11, Lena yawned. "You keeping the store? For 6 months. Then go to bed." June wrote September beneath Decide. The months that followed did not feel like rescue. They felt like work becoming less frightened of itself. Manny organized deliveries by route and charged for every stop. Lena created photo guides for the common repair kits. Darlene returned to 4 days, discovered she could stand without pain, and complained that everyone had rearranged the counter while she was gone. June stopped ordering entire product lines and began ordering reasons people came back. Odd faucet cartridges, individual screws, reliable locks, screen corners no chain store stocked because they occupied too little shelf space to matter. Grant added Mercer hardware to his written materials lists. Then 2 other contractors did the same. The backroom classes expanded to locks, patching drywall, basic electrical safety, and using a drill without stripping every screw. They never exceeded 8 people. When someone asked Lena for a 9th chair, she pointed at June and said, "Management can sit outside." By July, the bank balance stopped falling after large invoices. In August, June paid herself the modest salary she had written into the plan rather than taking whatever remained. In September, 18 months after the keys had rested untouched in the saucer, Mercer Hardware finished the quarter in the black. Not richly, not safely forever, viably. June bought a cake from the grocery store and removed the price sticker before placing it in the break room. Darlene found it anyway. "You paid $28 for this? It has frosting. So does cake mix." Manny cut slices with a utility knife until June gave him a kitchen knife kept specifically because he always did that. Lena ate hers at the workbench, leaving a smear of blue frosting beside a repair ticket. Mara came through from the warehouse. Grant arrived with the finished walnut cabinet. Mark brought the repaired brass doorknob, which had worked perfectly for 6 months, but which he claimed needed a checkup. Elise arrived carrying a bottle of sparkling wine and Walter's red flannel over one arm. They stayed after closing. Grant mounted the cabinet in June's apartment. It fit beside the kitchen window. He had completed Walter's unfinished joinery, but left one interior pencil mark visible. G's pattern adjusted. June did not ask which man the adjustment belonged to. They ate takeout around the small table. Mark and Elise argued about whether the cabin loan's interest rate was predatory. Grant told them both to stop discussing debt over noodles. Elise lifted her glass. To Mom proving us wrong. June touched her glass to the others, but disliked the toast. The store was not a point scored against them. It was payroll on Thursday. Later, Mark followed her downstairs while everyone carried plates to the sink. He stood in the office looking at the calendar pages, reports, and operating limits. You should update the valuation, he said. The store, the business and property together. Why? Estate planning. June looked at him. Mark used the careful tone he reserved for conversations he had rehearsed. If something happens to you, ownership needs to be clear. It is clear. I own it. For now. The words chilled her more than the failed furnace had. Elise appeared in the office doorway. She had heard enough to know the subject. We're not trying to upset you, she said. Grant came down the stairs behind her. June looked at all three. Mark continued. The store has value again. We need to talk about what happens to it eventually. Outside the office, Lena laughed at something Manny said. Darlene was wrapping leftover cake. The people who had chosen the store every day were 20 feet away. The people who had refused it stood around June's desk, speaking of eventually. June closed the office door. Through the glass, she could see Lena cutting another slice of cake while Manny held the plate. Darlene was wrapping 3 pieces in paper towels, an amount no person could honestly claim was for later. What exactly do you think should happen? June asked. Mark took the question as an invitation to become organized. The business should be valued. The property should be appraised separately. Then your estate documents should specify whether the store continues, whether the property is sold, and how the proceeds are divided. Divided among whom? Her children exchanged a glance. Us, Elise said. The word was not shameful. June disliked how much it hurt anyway. Grant leaned one shoulder against the filing cabinet. Nobody's saying now. Eventually, Mark added, yes, that's the word you used. Elise folded Walter's flannel over her arm. Mom, we all assumed your estate would come to the 3 of us. I gave you parts of it 18 months ago. You gave us things Dad left you. Correct. That wasn't the entire inheritance. You're right, it wasn't. Mark's careful tone returned. The store was worth very little then, possibly less than nothing after liquidation costs. Now it's an operating business again. That changes the estate planning picture. It changes your interest. That's unfair. Is it inaccurate? Mark hesitated. Grant rubbed a thumb over a nick in the filing cabinet. I'm not asking for the store. Then what are you asking for? I don't know. First refusal, maybe. June almost laughed. I gave you first refusal, when it was dying. Yes, that matters. It mattered to me, too. Grant's face tightened. I know. Elise put the flannel on Walter's chair. You're making this sound like we refused to save you from a burning building. You refused the building. We had reasons. You still have them. Mark has no time to run a hardware store. You have a real estate business and a septic loan. Grant spent 15 years avoiding this counter. Then sell it someday and divide the value, Elise said. To keep it in the family? June asked. Elise heard the contradiction. That's not what I mean. It's exactly what you mean. Keep the memory if it's pleasant. Sell the obligation if it's not. Mark stepped forward. We are not circling your body like vultures. No, you're measuring the wingspan in advance. Grant looked away, hiding something near a smile. Mark did not. This is why I wanted to discuss it before there's a crisis, he said. So nobody is guessing. You mean before I make a decision you dislike? I mean, while you can tell us what you want, I am telling you. No, you're punishing us for what we chose. The accusation landed in the same tender place Elise had found at the cabin. June looked at the calendar, the reports, Walter's glasses on the desk. She could sell Mercer Hardware tomorrow and leave money equally. She could leave the property to the 3 of them and let Mark calculate, Elise market, and Grant disappear until closing. All of it would be simpler than deciding where work belonged. I haven't made a decision, she said. Elise crossed her arms. But you're thinking about one. Yes. What? I don't know yet. Grant pushed away from the cabinet. Then maybe don't treat us like thieves for asking. June held his gaze. Fair. He had not expected agreement. Fair, she repeated. You asked. I heard you. Now go upstairs and take your cabinet off my wall if you think it bought an answer." His face changed. "That was low," Elise said. "Yes," June replied. Grant said nothing. He opened the office door and walked through the store. The front bell rang a minute later. Mark followed after telling June to call when she was ready to discuss actual options. Elise picked up Walter's shirt and stopped at the doorway. "The cabin will be paid off in 6 years," she said. "I'm not asking you to rescue me. I know, and I did want it for the family. I know that too. Then stop saying it like I stole something." Elise left. June remained in the office until Darlene tapped on the glass. "You want us to pretend we didn't hear, did you?" "No, then pretending would waste time." Manny put his coat on. "I heard only after the door closed. You were 6 feet away. I work around power tools. Hearing comes and goes." Lena washed cake frosting from her fork in the utility sink. She waited until Manny and Darlene had left before speaking. "Don't do it for us." June gathered the paper plates. "Do what?" "Whatever you're thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. You looked at us when they said divide. I was looking through glass. You can be difficult in both directions." June dropped the plates into the trash. They chose what they wanted. Now the store earns money, and suddenly it is family again. So, be angry, I am. Good. Be angry before you make contracts. June turned. "You don't want the business?" Lena dried the fork. "I didn't say that." The answer opened a door June had been afraid to name. She sat at the workbench. "Would you?" "Would I what?" "Own it." Lena looked around the back room. Repair tickets hung from a clip. The practice wall bore scratches from 100 uncertain hands. Her green vise was bolted to the left side of the Grant's bench. With what money? That comes after weather. That is how people end up owning things they can't afford. Then include the money. Lena pulled out the folding chair opposite June. "I could run repairs, classes, purchasing. Manny knows deliveries and stock. Darlene knows everybody who owes, lies, complains, or returns things after using them. She'll be pleased with that description. She'll agree. Would you want to run the whole store? No. I'd want authority over the parts I run. Real authority. Not you agreeing until you don't." There it was. The friction between them, unvarnished. "What would I run?" June asked. At first, financials, supplier accounts, contractor relationships. Eventually, less. Eventually. It's not only your children who can say the word. June looked toward the ceiling of her apartment. "What about the building? I can't buy a building. I'm not offering the building." "Then what are you offering?" "I don't know yet." Lena stood. "Find out, then ask us. Don't announce that you saved 3 employees from your greedy children. I would never say that. You would say it more politely." June disliked her again, which was useful. She spent the next month building an option that did not require anyone to be rescued. The business had a modest value now. Inventory, equipment, customer accounts, name, systems, and profit history. The building had a separate value and a separate debt. Mixing them made the price impossible for employees and would leave June without reliable housing, so she separated them. June would retain ownership of the property and apartment. Mercer Hardware would pay market rent sufficient to cover the bank payment, taxes, insurance, maintenance reserve, and a modest monthly income for June. The operating business would be sold gradually to an employee group over 8 years, with payments tied to profit, so one bad winter did not destroy the buyers. The price was not a gift. It was also not inflated to capture every possible future dollar. June's attorney prepared drafts after June had already decided the terms. Her accountant challenged the projections. Lena challenged everything else. 8 years is long, she said. So is ownership. What happens if you die in year 3? The lease continues under the same terms. Who gets the building? Not decided. Lena looked at her. One decision at a time, June said. Darlene reacted to the proposal by sitting down, though her knee no longer required it. I'm 63. You asked for a bonus. I didn't ask to buy my own job. You don't have to. What share? June proposed 10% for Darlene, 30% for Manny, and 60% for Lena, purchased over time according to the same valuation. Darlene squinted. Why does she get more? Because she'll run daily operations. I've been here 11 years, and you want 4 days, no evenings, and 3 weeks to visit your sister every winter. 4 weeks if I own it. Manny asked whether he could afford his share on his current wages. June showed him the projections, including bad years. He took them home and returned with his own questions written on the back of a grocery receipt. What if deliveries grow? Then you hire help before your back chooses for you. What if they don't? Your payment adjusts with profit. What if Lena and I disagree? Lena said. He loses. June added a deadlock process. They examined the books, all of them. The remaining debt, the winter losses, the unpaid accounts, the cost of the roof, and the exact amount June would receive. Darlene looked at the revenue from the repair bench. We make that much from lamps? We don't repair toasters, Lena said. We should. No. See, Darlene told June, already abusing her majority. They took 2 weeks to decide. Lena said yes first, but only after negotiating authority to change classes, repair policies, and staffing without June's approval. Manny said yes after visiting 3 other stores and discovering none paid him more or let him choose the radio station. Darlene said yes last. I want it in writing that I can sell my share back when I retire. It is. And employee pricing starts immediately. You've had employee pricing for 11 years. Then I'm being reasonable. June signed a letter of intent with them. Not the final sale, not yet. Enough to begin formal documents, financing arrangements, and transition planning. She invited her children to the store after closing. The repair bench had been cleared. 4 chairs stood around it. June placed copies of the proposal in front of Mark, Elise, and Grant. None opened the document immediately. What is this? Mark asked. A plan for Mercer Hardware. Elise read the first page. Her expression hardened line by line. You're selling it to employees. They're buying the operating business over 8 years. I keep the property. And the building eventually goes where? Mark asked. I haven't decided. Is the purchase price market value? A fair business valuation, reviewed by an accountant. Your accountant? The business's accountant. Grant had reached the page listing the buyers. Lena gets 60%. She will manage operations. Manny, 30. Darlene, 10. Yes. What do you get? Monthly purchase payments when there is profit, rent from the business, my apartment, a consulting salary during transition. Mark turned pages rapidly. This is seller financing, in part. You carry the risk. So do they. Elise pushed the proposal away. You knew exactly what you were doing when we asked about the estate. I started thinking after you asked. You were angry. I waited until I wasn't. You're still angry. Yes. Anger doesn't invalidate arithmetic. Grant had not pushed his copy away. He stared at Lena's name. You offered it to them before you told us. I asked whether they wanted the responsibility. You didn't ask us again. I asked you first. When it was failing, Elise said. June looked at her. You keep saying that as if the failure belonged to me and the recovery belongs to everyone. Mark's voice lowered. This business is part of Dad's legacy. It is also part of mine. No one is denying that. You did for most of my marriage. The words struck all 3 at once. Grant closed the proposal. I don't want to fight about Dad. Then don't use him as a shareholder. Elise stood. You're giving strangers what he built. The store was quiet enough that June could hear the wall clock above the register clicking. Lena, Manny, and Darlene had gone home. No audience waited beyond the office glass. No one would applaud whichever answer June gave. Her children stood on the other side of Grant's workbench, angry, frightened, and certain that belonging could be measured by blood. June placed her hands on the scarred maple. They are not strangers, she said. Elise looked toward the empty front of the store. They were strangers 18 months ago. So was every customer until somebody came through the door. That isn't the same as family. No, it's different. June remained behind the workbench. Grant had built it badly at 17. Walter had hidden it against a wall, and Lena had claimed its left side because her right hand could not do what it once had. The scars in the maple belonged to all of them now. Your father did not build this place alone, June said. I kept the books, ordered inventory, made payroll, and collected what people owed. Darlene stood at that register for 11 years. Manny carried half the town's water heaters into half the town's basements. Lena built a part of this business Walter never imagined. He started it, Elise said. Yes. You're acting like that means nothing. I'm acting like it does not mean everything. Mark picked up the proposal again. My concern is whether the terms protect you. That is not what brought you here. It's still a concern. Then read it. Ask questions. If you find a number that doesn't protect me, say so. But don't turn concern into a vote. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. Grant ran his fingers over the edge of the workbench. Does the name stay? Mercer Hardware? Yes. That's their decision after the purchase is complete. Lena says changing it would cost money. That sounds like Lena. She also says Mercer is easier to spell than Ortiz. Grant almost smiled. Elise did not. You wanted us to choose, she said. We did, but you never said that meant we were choosing against everything else forever. I didn't know what it meant yet. So this is punishment. No, it feels like it. June nodded. I believe you. Elise waited for more. This is not me making you hurt because I hurt, June said. If Mercer Hardware had closed, none of you would have divided the debt out of respect for Walter. You would have told me to sell, clear what I could, and be grateful it was over. These three are taking on the part you refused, the risk, the bad winters, the next furnace, the customer who disappears owing $612. They are buying the work, not winning a prize. Mark studied the payment schedule. Profit-based payments could be manipulated. Then show me where. I'm not accusing anyone. You're imagining strangers. I'm imagining a business transaction. Good. Stay there. He pulled Walter's chair closer and began reading the pages properly. Elise turned to Grant. Say something. He looked at June. If I wanted in? The question tightened the room. Do you? June asked. I asked if. If you wanted to work here, invest money, and take responsibility on the same terms, you could present it to the buyers. Lena would decide with Manny and Darlene. Lena would decide whether I can own Dad's store. Lena would decide whether you can buy into hers. Grant's jaw shifted. Then he nodded once. I don't want in, he said. I know. I just needed to know it wasn't because I'm his son. It would not be because of him either way. He looked toward the practice wall. Fair. Elise stared at him. That's it? No. Then what? Grant picked up his copy of the proposal. I don't know yet. The answer sounded like June, and all four of them heard it. Mark found 4 questions in the agreement. 2 had already been addressed in later drafts. 1 prompted June's accountant to recommend a larger building maintenance reserve. The last concerned what happened if the business missed purchase payments for too long. June added a process allowing the employee group to pause payments during 1 severe quarter, then requiring a meeting and revised plan. If the business failed beyond recovery, the remaining sale price would not become a personal debt. You're carrying more risk than a bank would, Mark said. A bank wouldn't make this loan. That doesn't make it wise. No, the numbers do. He read them again and eventually admitted the numbers were cautious. Elise refused to read past page 6. You've decided, she said. I'm not going to pretend my comments matter. They matter to me, not enough to change the answer. Those are different things. Elise folded Walter's flannel over her arm and left. Grant stayed long enough to inspect a loose drawer beneath the workbench. Mark returned his copy with handwritten questions in the margins and no recommendation at the top. For several weeks, family contact narrowed to practical matters. Mark called about the duplex foundation and asked Grant's opinion before committing to additional drainage work. Grant answered without asking to be praised. Elise sent photographs of the cabin's completed septic field, a broad rectangle of raw soil where grass had once grown. June replied that seed planted in fall would establish better than spring. Elise did not answer. The final purchase documents took time. Inventory had to be counted. The lease for the building had to distinguish the warehouse section, rented by Mara, from the retail space. Insurance policies changed. Lena rejected language that made June the final authority over repairs after transition. You can advise, Lena said. You cannot overrule. What if you start repairing toasters? Then I've suffered a brain injury, and the agreement should contain a medical provision. Darlene wanted a clause guaranteeing her 4 winter weeks. That is not an ownership right, the attorney told her. It is if I refuse to sign. She received 3 weeks guaranteed and a 4th if staffing permitted. Manny asked for authority to change the radio station. That does not belong in the contract, June said. Then I need a side letter. He got no side letter, but the country station remained. They signed on a rainy Thursday in December at the workbench because Darlene said the office was too small and Walter's chair squeaked during serious moments. June signed first. Lena read every page once more before adding her name. Manny used his own pen. Darlene signed, then looked around. Do I get a key now? You've had a key for 11 years, June said. But this one means ownership. It opens the same door. Darlene held it up anyway. Lena extended her left hand across the bench. June took it. You don't get to disappear upstairs, Lena said. I have a consulting agreement. You have opinions. We gave them a schedule. Manny opened sparkling cider. The cork struck a ceiling tile and left a dent. Darlene photographed the dent as evidence in case June tried to charge them. They returned to work the next morning. That mattered more than the signing. Lena changed the repair intake system and stopped accepting lamps with cloth-covered wiring. Manny added delivery windows so customers no longer waited all day. Darlene raised the price of candy by 10 cents without consulting anyone and defended it as an executive decision. June moved her files from Walter's office into a smaller desk upstairs. She remained responsible for supplier accounts during transition, but no longer approved every order. The first time Lena ordered inventory without asking, June went downstairs prepared to explain why 12 cases were excessive. Lena showed her 8 paid reservations and 3 contractor orders. June went back upstairs. Grant repaired the old register in January. It began adding sales tax twice again. Lena wanted a modern point-of-sale system. June agreed, but Grant asked to see the machine before they discarded it. He removed the cover, cleaned 2 contacts, replaced a cracked wire, and made it behave long enough to transfer the remaining records. They sat behind the counter after closing, surrounded by the smell of dust and electrical cleaner. I hated standing here, Grant said. June waited. You could see the whole store from this spot. Every aisle, every customer. Him coming from the office. Walter liked seeing everything. He liked everyone seeing him. June looked toward the office glass. When he corrected me, I'd stand right here and know the whole building heard. I should have brought you into the office. You should have told him to shut up in the aisle? Yes. Grant turned a screwdriver between his fingers. You said you argued with him later. I did. Did he listen? Sometimes. Did he apologize? Not enough. Did you? June looked at him. Not enough. He nodded, accepting neither absolution nor blame beyond its proper size. The new register arrived the following week. They kept the old one beneath the counter for 60 days in case the data transfer failed. Grant attached a label in June's handwriting style. Formerly difficult. Elise sold the cabin in February. The decision surprised Mark, irritated Grant, and relieved Elise so visibly that June wondered how long memory had been disguising itself as duty. Before listing it, Elise insisted on one final weekend. All 4 adults stayed at the cabin. The baseboard heaters worked poorly. Grant repaired the softboard on the dock, even though ice covered the lake. Mark brought groceries arranged by meal and became offended when Grant ate Wednesday's cheese on Tuesday. Walter's red flannel hung over the back of Elise's chair. They told stories about him. Some were kind, some were true. A few managed both. On Sunday morning, Elise stood at the window looking over the repaired septic field. I kept waiting for everybody to want this as much as I did. June stood beside her. Did you want the cabin or everybody in it? Elise considered the lake. Everybody in it. That's harder to own. Elise sold to a couple who wanted the leaning dock and did not mind the heaters. After paying the loan and selling expenses, she wrote June a check. The amount covered property taxes, insurance, and repairs. June and Walter had paid during the last 5 years they owned it. I didn't ask for this, June said. I know. You don't owe me. I chose the cabin. I want the whole choice. June accepted the check. Mark began visiting without spreadsheets. The first time, he brought muffins and no reason. June distrusted this until he ate one himself. His duplex eventually rented. It earned less than projected, which he described as stable underperformance. Grant called it a house. On the 2nd anniversary of Walter's death, Mercer Hardware had a profitable but ordinary Saturday. They sold furnace filters, 2 repair kits, a box of cabinet pulls, and 1 individual screw. Lena approved the individual screw after determining the customer truly needed only one. Manny completed 2 deliveries. Darlene left early for dinner with her sister and reminded everyone she was an owner on her way out. Grant spent the afternoon at the workbench, leaving sawdust beneath the green vise. Mark and Elise arrived with takeout and began arguing over whether Thai food had ever come in sufficient quantities. Lena went upstairs to make coffee because she refused to drink the stores. At 6, June turned the sign to closed. The new register went quiet. Main Street reflected in the dark front glass. Behind her, Grant laughed. Elise told Mark to stop organizing the containers. Lena called down to ask who had moved the good mugs. June reached into her cardigan pocket and took out the keys. They were the same keys she had placed in the chipped saucer 18 months earlier, when her children had chosen first and left the failing store for her. Now, the business belonged, little by little, to the people who had kept choosing it. The apartment remained hers. The building remained hers. Her children remained hers, too, though none of them belonged to her in the way she had once confused with love. June locked the door. For a moment she stood alone with the keys warm in her hand, not holding the burden nobody wanted, not guarding Walter's memory, not waiting for anyone to tell her what was safe. Upstairs, someone opened the cabinet Grant had finished. The hinge gave a soft, solid click. June switched off the sales floor lights and followed the voices home.